Chapter 1140. Divine Space Emperor and the others were hit by the quasi-sage lady's siren song. Now, they had fainted on the glacier and could not wake up for a long time. Ning Fan did not immediately wake up these useless teammates. His eyes were filled with curiosity as he studied the quasi-sage lady in front of him. His eyes flashed with green light, trying to see through the mysteries of this lady with his heavenly vision. This lady whom he suspected to be Afro seemed to be shrouded in a layer of mist that he could not see through. The lady was trapped in the net. She was clearly within his reach, but Ning Fan somehow felt a lingering sense of distance when he faced her. It was as if the actual distance between him and this lady was not just a single step or even thousands of mountains and rivers. Instead, they were separated by different space-time and endless samsara. Afro. This lady is also called Afro. The world of cultivation was extremely vast. It was not strange to have one or two cultivators with the same name. However, if their appearance, chi and behavior were almost the same, it could not be regarded as a coincidence. His intuition told him that this lady must have some kind of connection with Afro whom he had captured previously. However, he did not have the ability to fully understand this connection now. Afro was a little annoyed by Ning Fan's scorching gaze. She swayed her fishtail, trying to break free from Ning Fan's purple mist net. However, it was just a waste of her strength. As the power of the chaotic world purple mist's bewitching technique continued to invade her body, she gradually felt weak and numb all over. She gritted her teeth angrily and shouted, "How dare you use bewitching technique on me? Despicable! Are you really the disciple of the great sage Fire Toad? Don't you know that the great sage Fire Toad strictly forbids his disciples from practicing such unorthodox methods?" Ning Fan shook his head and said, "I'm not the disciple of the great sage Fire Toad." "Humph, don't try to deny it. You obviously have the inherited poison that the great sage Fire Toad bestowed upon his disciples. Why do you have to deceive me? Are you afraid that I will report the fact that you practice bewitching technique to the Divine Toad sect and to your ancestor, the Great Sage Fire Toad? Leave the dreamland? Divine Toad sect?" Ning Fan's eyes were filled with confusion. He had no idea what the Divine Toad sect was. Seeing that Ning Fan's bewilderment did not seem to be an act, it was the lady's turn to be doubtful this time. "Are you really not the disciple of the Great Sage Fire Toad?" Judging from his tone, she finally believed him a little. "No, the sage's legacy poison that you mentioned is a spoil of war that I obtained after killing an unlucky immortal emperor of the Fire Toad clan. Hee, this is really interesting. You actually dared to steal something from the Divine Toad sect. Although true death does not exist in the Dream Realm trial, you still snatched the Divine Toad sect's disciples' inherited poison. The Flame Toad Great Sage has always been protective of his own people. Once you leave the Dreamland trial, the Divine Toad sect will definitely not let you off. Unless you have the protection of a Nirvana saint, there will be no place for you to hide in the Four Wastelands." The quasi-saint realm lady sneered. She was still angry that Ning Fan plotted against her. As soon as she heard that Ning Fan was going to be in trouble, she naturally felt delighted. Dreamland trial? The Divine Toad sect was chasing after him? Nirvana Sage's protection? The Four Wastelands of heaven and earth? What are you talking about? I don't understand at all. The strange feeling in Ning Fan's heart became even stronger. He felt that when he was talking to this quasi-saint realm lady, there was a strong sense of disharmony. However, he could not tell where that disharmony came from. "You don't even know about the Four Wastelands of heaven and earth? It's impossible for any cultivator from the true world not to know about the Four Wastelands of heaven and earth." The quasi-saint realm lady stared at Ning Fan as if she was looking at an idiot. Logically speaking, this lady was Ning Fan's captive. With Ning Fan's personality, he would not be bothered to talk nonsense with a captive. However, at this moment, the disharmony in Ning Fan's heart grew stronger and stronger. He wanted to find the source of that feeling. Thus, he answered her patiently. "I'm not a cultivator from the true world. I'm a cultivator from the illusory dream realm." Illusory dream realm? What's the illusory dream realm? The quasi-saint realm lady became even more confused. You don't know about the illusory dream realm? Ning Fan was surprised. I've never heard of it. Then, do you know about the 3 great true worlds? What 3 great true worlds? Isn't there only one true world? There are 4 great continents in the true world. As a merman, you must be a member of the Merman clan. The Merman clan should be one of the clans of the last descendants of Ziwei, right? Ning Fan asked tentatively. What do you mean by the last descendants of Ziwei? What nonsense are you spouting? My Ziwei immortal region is still alive and well. It has never been destroyed. How dare you spout nonsense like that? The quasi-saint realms seemed to have been insulted by Ning Fan. Thus, she flew into a rage. I suppose you must have been trapped under this glacier for too many years. You actually don't know that the Ziwei immortal region has already been destroyed more than 1 billion years ago. Ning Fan said, What nonsense? I've just been trapped in the dream trial for several 100 million years. If converted to real time, it's just a few hundred breaths. Right now, my great Ziwei immortal region is clearly occupying half of the North Continent and holding the dream trial that happens once every 10 years. As for my true body in the North Continent, it can still send me news from the outside world. How dare you spout nonsense and say that my great Ziwei immortal region has been destroyed? Humph. As expected, you're just like the 8 disciples of the water sect. You really know which continent and which sect you're from. How dare you slander the Ziwei immortal region in front of me? If the great sage Ziwei finds out about this, he certainly won't let you off easily. The great sage Ziwei? Who's that? Ignorant and ill-informed. You don't even know about the great sage Ziwei. He's the ancestor of my Ziwei immortal region. A dignified Nirvana saint. Nirvana saint? Ancestor? Shouldn't the ancestor of your Ziwei immortal cultivators be the 4th step immortal sovereign Ziwei? How could he be the Nirvana saint? Are you joking with me? There has never been a 4th step immortal sovereign in my Ziwei immortal region. Moreover, I don't know why the great sage Ziwei always weeps when the 4th step is mentioned. Can you tell me about the history of the 4 great continents of your true world? Ning Fan seemed to have guessed something and said to the lady, Humph. Who do you think you are to me? Why should I listen to you? The lady said disdainfully, You're my captive now. If you don't listen to my orders, don't blame me for punishing you. Humph. A mere punishment was nothing to be afraid of. At most, I'll just have another nightmare. I'm not afraid. The lady said proudly. That arrogant expression was exactly the same as the other Afro who had just been captured by Ning Fan. She had an unyielding and resolute expression. They're really alike. The 2 Aphrodite were clearly carved from the same mold. Ning Fan already had a lot of experience in dealing with the other Afro. He wondered if his experience and methods would be useful on the Afro in front of him. Ning Fan flicked his sleeve, trying to bring the lady into the profound Een world. However, he realized that the profound Een world could not contain her. When the lady saw that Ning Fan wanted to use the world treasure to contain her, she immediately sneered and said mockingly, Don't waste your effort. Your world treasure can't contain me. Even if you want to bring me out of this world of glaciers, you won't be able to do it. This is also the reason why the 8 disciples of Water Sect had no choice but to imprison me here. They can't bring me out of this world of glaciers. You can't bring me out of this place? Ning Fan's eyes shot out green rays that pierced through heaven and earth. It was his first time observing this world of glaciers so seriously. Gradually, he seemed to have understood something which confirmed the speculation in his heart. If that's the case, I won't change the location. I'll punish you right here. Ning Fan pressed the lady who was trapped by the fishing net of bewitching technique against the ice wall. Then, he used his large hand to remove the shell that was covering her chest. What are you trying to do to me? The lady instantly lost control of her embarrassment. She realized what Ning Fan wanted to do to her. She was 70% angry but also 30% unwilling to accept it. It was extremely illogical. You don't mean what you say. Ning Fan inwardly despised the hypocrisy of this lady. Through the thin fishing net of bewitching technique, he sucked on her voluptuous breasts. Damn it. It's you. It's you. I remember it now. It's so comfortable. The lady leaned against the ice wall, raised her neck and let out an unbearable moan. She allowed Ning Fan to do whatever he wanted, but she did not show much resistance. At this moment, countless blurry images of her dreams gradually became clearer in her mind. She had countless nightmares in which she was pressed down and violated by others countless times. She also lost the mermaid's tears countless times. She did not know where those nightmares came from. She only remembered that the intruders were all men in white robes whose faces could not be seen clearly. Now that those nightmares became clearer, she finally remembered that all the intruders in her dreams looked exactly the same as the man in front of her. No wonder. No wonder she did not feel any hatred towards him even though he had captured her. Instead, she felt that it was only natural. So she had already had countless intimate contact with this man in her dreams. So it's you. Damn it. Damn it. Be gentle. You're biting me. I know I'm wrong. I'll tell you everything you want to know. Stop licking me. The lady's face was flushed and she finally begged for mercy. Her countless nightmares told her that if she did not beg for mercy, Ning Fan would definitely make her collapse and shed her precious lover's tears. Seeing that she had given in, Ning Fan did not want to humiliate her too much. He loosened his mouth and put the shell back on her chest. The lady panted softly while secretly letting out a sigh of relief. Deep in her heart, there seemed to be a shadow of being humiliated by Ning Fan which made her a little more afraid of him. When Ning Fan asked her about the history of the true world she came from, she naturally told him everything she knew. Of course, she would rather die than tell him any damaging information about the Z-Way immortal domain. Her persistence was just like the other Aflo. She was stubborn and adorable. The true world I came from originated from Patriarch Hongjun's Tao teachings. At that time, there was no true world in heaven and earth. The world was just a primordial world. As the quasi-saint realm lady continued to speak, Ning Fan finally understood where the sense of distance and disharmony that he felt earlier came from. Ever since Ning Fan started cultivating the Tao, he had come into contact with the 3 great true worlds and countless illusory dream worlds. However, the world that this lady had come into contact with was only one true world which was divided into 4 continents. In the cultivation world that Ning Fan had come into contact with, Immortal Sovereign Zido had eliminated 2 immortal sovereigns, Z-Wei and Beidou, all by himself. In the cultivation world that this lady had come into contact with, Immortal Sovereign Z-Wei did not exist at all. The strongest expert in Z-Wei was just a Nirvana saint who belonged to the middle level of the 3 great saint realms, Incipient, Nirvana and Desolate. If it was Ning Fan who had just stepped onto the path of cultivation, he would certainly think that the lady in front of him was a lunatic who was spouting nonsense. Unfortunately, Ning Fan was no longer the rookie cultivator he was in the past. He believed that this lady was not lying. There was another reason why their understanding of the world was different from each other. Ning Fan did not know much about the history of the true world. However, he still knew the general trend of history. First, there were divine spirits. Then there were immortal spirits. After that, there were immortal cultivators of the true world. This was the general history of the development of the true world. However, in the world that the lady lived in, it was a world of primordial chaos in the beginning. Then Hongjun preached the Tao. After that, the primordial chaos was split open. After that, it was the era of shamans and demons. After that, it was the era of shamans and shamans. This lady came from another cultivation world. In that cultivation world, there was no immortal sovereign Z-Wei, immortal sovereign Beidou and immortal sovereign Zido. In that world, there were also supreme 4th step immortal sovereigns who were fighting for the great Tao. However, there was no dark side world like the illusory dream world in that world. The existence of that world was like a parallel space that was parallel to the world that Ning Fan lived in. In the past, Sovereign 2 had instilled a lot of knowledge about the samsara of parallel time and space to Ning Fan when he could not understand it. Now, Ning Fan understood it a little bit. He no longer listened to the historical changes of the world that the lady lived in. Instead, he fell into deep thought and became slightly absent-minded. The lady was talking about the exciting Great War of the Primordial Era. She was really fascinated by this period of history. Initially, she thought that Ning Fan would also like to listen to it. However, when she saw that Ning Fan was absent-minded and was not interested in this period of history at all, she immediately felt a little annoyed. How could she not be angry? It was Ning Fan who asked her to talk about the history of the origin world. She did it obediently, but Ning Fan did not listen properly. How dare he be absent-minded? Humph. If you don't listen carefully, I won't talk about it anymore. This is impossible. This is the submission of the plants. How did you do this? The lady wanted to complain a little more, but she was suddenly attracted by the strange scene in front of her. The glacier in this place was originally barren due to the extreme cold. However, as Ning Fan waved his sleeve, clusters of cattail grasses that were as tall as a human's waist grew out of nowhere on the surface of the ice. Creating plants from nothing was the application of the Tao of wood. Moreover, it was not an ordinary Tao law but the power of the sovereign realm. As soon as those cattail grasses appeared, they immediately knelt on the ground as if they were kowtowing to Ning Fan. It was not because of his divine ability but because they were submitting to him from the bottom of their hearts. This made the lady's heart skip a beat. She did not expect that Ning Fan, who was just an immortal king realm cultivator, could actually use the sovereign realm of wood to such a level. Rumor has it that in the same era, only one of the sovereign realm sovereigns who cultivated to the same sovereign realm could become the supreme sovereign of that sovereign realm. Only such an existence could make all living beings in the sovereign realms submit to him from the bottom of their hearts. Could it be that Ning Fan had already reached the pinnacle of the sovereign realm of wood with just a mere immortal king realm cultivation base? This is impossible. Ning Fan did not care about the lady's astonishment. He would also not explain his supreme identity as the father of wood to her. At this moment, he was immersed in a mysterious enlightenment. This enlightenment actually made the power of samsara in his body gradually increase. From the words of the lady, Ning Fan saw a brand new appearance of samsara. He finally understood what the parallel universe that Sovereign 2 mentioned in the past was all about. He remembered that Sovereign 2 had mentioned the concept of the connection point of samsara. You asked me what the connection point of samsara is? Of course, it refers to the place where many samsara are connected to. What? You still don't understand? This is such a headache. How am I supposed to explain it to you? I'm not good at teaching people with words. Samsara is a very mysterious thing. It doesn't just have one layer. Instead, it has layers upon layers. Each layer of samsara is like a parallel universe. Everyone who goes out from that parallel universe can have countless past and also countless future. You can understand the connection point of samsara as the boundaries of different parallel universes. Your past might not necessarily be what you have experienced in this life. Your future might not necessarily be what you have encountered in this life. Do you understand now? The connection point of samsara. That's right. This world of glaciers was obviously a connection point of samsara that the 8 disciples of the water sect had accidentally discovered. This world of glaciers was connected to another samsara. In that parallel samsara, there was also an Aphrodite who was undergoing the dream trials that happened once every 10 years in the Z-Way immortal domain. If I'm not mistaken, this quasi-saint Aphrodite should be the half-saint Aphrodite whom I caught previously in another parallel samsara. There could be countless parallel samsara. The same person could go through countless samsara. Because these samsara were parallel, they would never meet each other. However, there were also exceptions. That exception was the connection point of samsara. It could actually connect parallel samsara. This quasi-saint Aphrodite could not be brought out of this world of glaciers. She could not be kept into the space of the world treasure because she did not belong to this samsara. Thus, her freedom was sealed by the samsara of this world. Do you know about samsara? At this moment, Ning Fan's eyes were clear as if they contained the myriad Tao of the heavens. The quasi-saint Aphrodite was stunned and shook her head. Is samsara something that I'm qualified to know? She who was at the quasi-saint realm had just touched a trace of perfection. She was still very far away from comprehending samsara and becoming a sage. This is the samsara that I am in. Ning Fan casually plucked a handful of cattail grass and weaved it into a grass ring. Then he showed it to Aphrodite. She did not understand what Ning Fan was doing. She could not understand why a grass ring was a samsara. She remained silent and waited for Ning Fan to explain. However, Ning Fan did not explain to her. Instead, he plucked another handful of cattail grass and weaved a second grass ring. This is the samsara that you are in. Aphrodite became even more confused. As a quasi-saint, she certainly had a basic understanding of the word samsara. However, Ning Fan's words were too mysterious. It was so mysterious that she could not understand a single word. Ning Fan still did not explain. Suddenly, he piled the 2 grass rings on the ground and asked, "Do you understand now?" Aphrodite shook her head. The confusion in her eyes deepened. She stared at the 2 grass rings on the ground. There seemed to be a voice in her mind that kept asking questions. Why are these 2 grass rings parallel to each other? How can these 2 grass rings exist in parallel? It's impossible for there to be 2 of them in the same world. You don't understand? Then, can you understand now? Ning Fan plucked another cattail grass and tied one end of it to a grass ring. With that, this cattail grass became the only connecting point of the 2 parallel grass rings. Ning Fan pointed at the cattail grass that connected the 2 parallel grass rings and said to Aphrodite, "I don't know what the dream trial that you are talking about is. However, if I'm not mistaken, you might have accidentally taken the wrong path and entered the connection point of the parallel samsara. That's why you were suppressed by the 8 disciples of the water sect, parallel samsara? Connection point." Aphrodite was enlightened. Her beautiful eyes widened in shock. At this moment, she seemed to have figured out many questions. The place that she was currently in was not some dream trial. The people that she met here were also completely different from the people in her previous samsara. No wonder she always felt a sense of discomfort towards this world of glaciers. It turns out that this is the reason. She had accidentally entered into another cycle of reincarnation. Samsara. What is samsara? Parallel? How can it be parallel? Ning Fan plucked more cattail grass and weaved more grass rings. Then he placed them vertically on the ground. The grass rings piled up into a small tower. As it grew taller, it gradually reached the height of a human. However, the confusion in Ning Fan's eyes grew. He no longer piled up the grass rings. Instead, he drew a straight line on the ground. In Aphrodite's eyes, this straight line was just a line. However, in Ning Fan's eyes, every point on this straight line was a grass ring. All of them were parallel samsara. The parallel samsara naturally formed a straight line when they were stacked on top of each other. However, Ning Fan also knew that there was no such thing as a straight line in samsara. No matter how straight the line was, it would eventually return to the starting point and form a circle. Ning Fan drew the straight line very long. Then, he covered his eyes with the remaining samsara power that he had. His eyes were no longer glowing with green light. Instead, they were covered by a layer of purplish-golden samsara power. When this samsara power covered his eyes, the space-time that Ning Fan saw began to distort. The straight line was no longer a straight line. After the straight line on the ground was distorted, it eventually connected with each other, forming an impenetrable circle. However, this circle, this connection and the distortion of space-time could only be seen by Ning Fan. Aphrodite could not. When countless parallel space-time are stacked together, it will form a brand new big circle. And this circle was the true reincarnation. Be it the samsara that I am in or the samsara that quasi-Saint Aphrodite is in, they are actually just a part of the complete samsara. If the grass rings that I weaved in the beginning are regarded as the first ring of the heavenly Tao, then when the first ring of the heavenly Tao that exists in parallel are stacked together, they can form a bigger and vaster samsara circle. This is the second ring of the heavenly Tao. If the second ring of the heavenly Tao is also stacked in the same way, the third ring of the heavenly Tao can be stacked together. If the third ring of the heavenly Tao is also stacked in parallel like this, the existence of the world is countless small circles stacked together to form a big circle. However, when the big circle reaches its limit, it is highly possible that it will return to the initial small circle. In the countless parallel samsara, there are countless Aphrodites. Are there also countless Ning fans like me and me? In the countless parallel samsara, there can be countless Ning fans. If I meet the other Ning fans, I can only use Ning fan to differentiate between us. It will not be able to differentiate us. That is why I am Ning fan but also not Ning fan. But if I am not Ning fan, who am I? The moment Ning fan asked this question, the aura around him suddenly changed. At this moment, he began to be unable to distinguish who he was. However, at this moment, the veins of the world were incomparably clear in his eyes. This question was not about his name but his true self. The moment he asked this question, Ning fan gained the qualifications to cultivate his true self corpse, cultivate his good corpse, and cultivate his evil corpse. He gained the qualifications to attain the saint realm through the corpse severing technique. Of course, Ning fan who asked this question did not realize this himself, let alone know about the corpse severing technique. He might not know about it, but it did not mean that quasi-Saint Aphrodite did not know about it. In the parallel samsara that she was in, there were many saints and immortal sovereigns. She was even fortunate enough to witness a great cultivator attaining the saint realm through the corpse severing technique. She did not understand Ning fan, but she sensed a trace of the chi of his true self corpse from his body. What did he do? He's just an immortal king, but his body actually nurtured a trace of the karma seed of his true self corpse. This is impossible. How can there be such a heaven-defying existence in this world? Even those great cultivators, great demons and great devils who can comprehend the karma seed of the three corpses are rare existences. Otherwise, why would so many supreme existences die in front of the door of the third step? Why would so many people give up on the corpse severing technique and settle for the next best thing, seeking the path of becoming a saint through virtue? How did he nurture the karma seed of his true self? He just weaved some grass rings, said some strange words and drew a straight line. Aphrodite could not calm down. She vaguely realized that there was a precious opportunity to comprehend the corpse severing technique right in front of her, but she could not comprehend it. She stared at the straight line that Ning fan drew on the ground, trying to figure out what it was. Unfortunately, this straight line would always be a straight line in her eyes. Only those who had just come into contact with the profound mysteries of samsara could distort time and space and connect the two ends. She was destined not to be as heaven-defying as Ning fan, who could easily cultivate the karma seed of his true self. Who am I? Ning fan seemed to be trapped in this question, unable to extricate himself. It was as if there were countless devil voices questioning him. However, the more he understood about samsara, the more he could not find an answer. Am I Ning fan? I'm not Ning fan. Ning fan has a lot of things. As for me, how can I be the only one? No matter how hard Aphrodite looked at the straight line, she could not find any clues. When she saw Ning fan muttering, "Who am I?" as if he was possessed by the devil, she was instantly shocked. Not good. This young man is just an immortal king. How is he qualified to cultivate the karma seed of his true self? He has rashly touched the corpse severing technique and went berserk. Should I save him or not? Should I? Aphrodite was caught in a dilemma. All of a sudden, her mind was filled with countless nightmares of touching Ning fan's skin. Those nightmares were very far away, so far that they seemed to be something that happened in another samsara. On the other hand, those nightmares were very close to her. It was as if the medicinal power of the pills that Ning fan gave her had yet to dissolve. She remembered that in one of the nightmares she collapsed from exhaustion due to shedding the tears of a mermaid and nearly dropped her cultivation base. From then on, Ning fan would feed her pills with concern every time he asked for the tears of a mermaid to strengthen her foundation and nourish her primordial spirit. Her mind was still struggling, but her body had already reacted in advance. When you know who you are not you. When you don't know who you are you. Aphrodite suddenly opened her mouth to remind him. Even she herself was surprised when she spoke. She actually cared so much about Ning fan's safety. Aphrodite did not know the profound meaning behind her words. She only knew that there was once a great cultivator in the Z-Way immortal region that she was from who went berserk like Ning Fan when he cultivated the karma seed of his true self. He kept asking himself, who am I, in a deranged manner. At that time, the Z-Way immortal king had said something like that to awaken that great cultivator. Ning Fan had fallen into a state of berserk. His spirit sense was muddled, and the last bit of clarity in his mind told him that the current situation was extremely dangerous. As expected, samsara was not something that he could comprehend easily. It seemed like he had suffered a backlash because he tried to comprehend samsara in a random manner. Ning Fan sensed that the samsara power in his body had flowed into his primordial spirit for some unknown reason. Inside his primordial spirit, it formed a strange purplish-golden seed. Ning Fan did not know that this seed was the karma seed of his true self that countless great cultivators yearned for. However, he could vaguely tell that the reason why he was going berserk was largely related to this strange seed. He thought to himself that if he continues to go berserk, his life would certainly be in danger. Thus, he might as well destroy this strange seed. In this way, he could probably wake up from the berserk state. Just as he was about to use his remaining consciousness to destroy this seed, Aphrodite's words suddenly reached his ears. When you know who you are not you. When you don't know who you are you. All of a sudden, Ning Fan seemed to have understood something. The heart devil that was raging in his body suddenly showed signs of calming down. Yes, be it Ning Fan or my countless parallel samsara, they are not born from my will. I don't know who the creator is, but I might as well call the person who drew this endless circle of samsara the creator. The creator created a butterfly. This kind of creation is where the creator's will lies. However, it is not my will. The reason why I am Ning Fan is not because the creator wanted to create a Ning Fan, but because I want to be Ning Fan. My existence has nothing to do with my body, my name, my cultivation base, and my Tao attainments. Where my will is, I am who I am. Because there are countless of me in the endless samsara, I am not Ning Fan. Because my will is unique, I am still Ning Fan. Even though the parallel samsara could create countless Ning Fan with similar appearance and chi, there would only be one who had the same will. I am me. Why do I need to ask myself? Ning Fan exhaled a mouthful of turbid chi and completely suppressed his heart devil. After overcoming this chi deviation, the mysterious seed in his body seemed to have become more stable. It firmly rooted itself in his primordial spirit, using the power of his primordial spirit as its nutrients to grow. At the same time, it nourished the samsara power in his body, causing it to grow at an extremely slow and stable speed. It can actually increase the samsara power? This unknown seed is really incredible. He had almost destroyed the seed just now. Ning Fan looked at Quasi-Saint Aphrodite, who was trapped in the fishing net, with a complicated expression and sighed. If it wasn't for this lady's advice, he certainly wouldn't be able to break free from the heart devil so easily. No matter what, he had to destroy this mysterious seed in his body. Today, he relied on this lady to protect this mysterious seed. Because of this, he also owed her a favor. When he thought about how she repaid him with kindness even though he was extremely thick-skinned, he also felt a little ashamed at this moment. Thank you. He displayed his ability and actually removed the bewitching net that was trapping her. Aphrodite was also stunned. She did not expect that Ning Fan would be so grateful that he would let her go after she casually gave him some advice. As the bewitching net was removed, Aphrodite's magic power recovered bit by bit. Her massive quasi-saint realm chi rushed out once again, shaking heaven and earth. With a wave of her magic power, Aphrodite subconsciously wanted to get rid of Ning Fan to avenge herself. However, when she recalled that Ning Fan was actually the person whom she had fantasized about countless times and remembered the kindness of Ning Fan who had set her free, no matter how cruel and merciless she was, she could not bear to attack Ning Fan at this moment. Her heart was filled with an indescribable feeling. Why did you let me go? She actually scolded Ning Fan instead. Ning Fan was speechless and replied, "Isn't it better to let you go? Or do you prefer me to lock you up and ravage you?" Pooh. Shameless. Aphrodite's face turned red. She was not a masochist. How could she possibly like being locked up and ravaged by Ning Fan? However, she also had to admit that she was a little attached to the various kinds of pleasure she experienced in her dreams. She did not expect to find out that the person she was fantasizing about was actually someone else after having those nightmares for so many years. This kind of feeling was too shameful. When she recalled that Ning Fan was still nibbling on her breast just now, she felt even more embarrassed. She looked at the world of glaciers around her and changed the topic. I didn't expect this place to actually be the connection point of parallel samsara. Does this mean that we are not people from the same samsara? It turns out that this place isn't a trial of dreams. No wonder the 8 disciples of Water Sect were so shocked when I accidentally entered this place in the past and directly suppressed me. They probably thought that I was an invader from the outer world. After suppressing me, they even used the Kowtow Inquisition technique to gather incense and deduce my origin by worshipping my statue. Kowtow Inquisition technique? Ning Fan was stunned. In the mortal world, there were some temples that gathered incense and drew lots for fortune-telling through worshipping. He did not expect that the cultivation world could also use incense in this way. It was really magical. Unfortunately, this kind of divine technique seemed to have been lost in the cultivation world a long time ago. The current Doomsday Immortal Emperor also did not pay much attention to things like incense. I have been imprisoned by the 8 disciples of Water Sect for hundreds of millions of years. Even though I only participated in the trial of dreams for a few hundred breaths, I'm afraid it has already greatly affected my score. So, I have to go back. I have to return to my samsara. Aphrodite let out a sigh. Hundreds of millions of years in the dream was equivalent to hundreds of breaths in reality. However, she had experienced the pain of being suppressed for hundreds of millions of years. Even though her cultivation base did not improve, her Tao heart was a few times stronger than before. I accidentally entered this world of glaciers when I lost my way in the past. The entrance has already disappeared. This time, I can use a secret technique to go back, but I won't be able to find the entrance anymore in the future. Goodbye, Meng Lang. Meng Lang. Ning Fan shuddered. Instinctively, he felt that this form of address was extremely vulgar. He thought that if Aphrodite returns to the other world and calls him this way forever, it would be too unpleasant to hear. After thinking for a while, Ning Fan decided to tell her his name. He was Ning Fan. The one and only Ning Fan. My name is Ning Fan. All right. I'll remember it. Goodbye, Meng Lang. Aphrodite turned around with a smile and stared at Ning Fan deeply. In the end, she made a hand seal and displayed some kind of secret technique, planning to leave this world of glaciers. Wait, I have someone here that I want you to meet. Ning Fan suddenly thought of something. He really wanted to know what would happen if Aphrodite from 2 different worlds met. Perhaps it would bring danger to the 2 ladies, or perhaps it would bring them different opportunities. If there is danger, he would certainly do his best to protect the 2 ladies considering Aphrodite's warning. If there is an opportunity, he might be able to use this opportunity to slightly repay the quasi-saint Aphrodite's kindness. Who do you want me to meet? The quasi-saint Aphrodite was surprised. You will know when you see him. Ning Fan took a deep breath. After a long time, he finally released the quasi-saint Aphrodite from the profound Een world. As for the quasi-saint Aphrodite, Ning Fan did not trust her as much. Even though he released her, he still tied her up with a rope of bewitching technique. At first, the quasi-saint Aphrodite was a little interested in Ning Fan and was not interested in meeting other people. However, when the quasi-saint Aphrodite saw another Aphrodite, her beautiful eyes instantly widened. She was so shocked that she could not close her mouth. Of course, the quasi-saint Aphrodite was also stunned by the scene in front of her. There was no need for further explanation. The 2 ladies only needed to stand face to face and they would be able to sense the flow of each other's blood. Just like themselves. At this moment, the memories of the 2 ladies overlapped and their cultivation base merged. The quasi-saint Aphrodite's cultivation base instantly gained the cultivation base of the quasi-saint Aphrodite. At the same time, the various memories of the quasi-saint Aphrodite were also added. The quasi-saint Aphrodite's cultivation base skyrocketed, almost breaking through to the quasi-saint realm in a single breath. If it wasn't for her lack of comprehension, she would certainly become a quasi-saint in a single step. At this moment, the two ladies who originally had different paths of reincarnation seemed to have become one because of the overlapping of their reincarnations. It was as if two pieces of broken fragments that were in different reincarnations had found each other and formed a slightly bigger fragment. So this is the situation when two people from different spaces meet. It seems like the benefits are great. In this way, it is enough to repay this lady's kindness. Ning Fan heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that there was no danger when the two individuals from different spaces met each other. In the next moment, he gained another layer of understanding and speculation. Could it be that after the third step, the cultivators would meet each other in a different parallel space? If that's the case, could it be that he had given her a chance to advance to the third step by letting the two different Aphrodites meet each other? I am Aphrodite. The quasi-saint Aphrodite said to the other Aphrodite with a smile. I am also Aphrodite. The other party also revealed a smile as if she had understood something. You are me. You are me too. He is Meng Lang. Yes, he is Meng Lang. At this moment, the two ladies' eyes fell on Ning Fan at the same time. Their eyes were filled with complicated emotions. Ning Fan felt a headache. Meng Lang is such a vulgar title. Is he going to be called by Aphrodite for the rest of his life? Whether it is the different space or the simultaneous void. You go back to the other side. Leave the original self to me. After all, Meng Lang is in this reincarnation cycle. The quasi-saint Aphrodite suddenly ordered the other Aphrodite. Although the quasi-saint Aphrodite's cultivation base was higher, she was extremely obedient to the quasi-saint Aphrodite's orders. The two of them did not know what they had done. All of a sudden, they had a sense of priority. Then, the quasi-saint Aphrodite executed a secret technique and returned to the different space and time she was in. As for the quasi-saint Aphrodite, she sensed the additional karma seed of self in her body in disbelief. She had actually comprehended the karma seed of self. However, she knew that she could not be like Ning Fan, who could draw a straight line to form the karma seed. The reason why she could cultivate the karma seed was because of a heaven-defying opportunity, the opportunity of meeting her in another space and time. This was the encounter that countless saints longed for. She had actually obtained such a fortuitous encounter before she became a saint. Meng Lang, how long are you going to tie me up? Call me Ning Fan. Ning Fan looked at the quasi-saint Aphrodite meaningfully. This woman's expression when she looked at him was actually the same as the quasi-saint Aphrodite. Both of them carried a hint of complicated emotions. It was truly a rare thing. The quasi-saint Aphrodite was originally his captive. However, for the sake of the other Aphrodite, he still nodded his head and untied all the ropes that were tied on her body. All right, I'll call you Ning Fan. Ning Fan, you have given me the hope of becoming a saint. I, Aphrodite, will definitely repay your kindness. From today onwards, I will no longer be your enemy. All the grudges in the past will be written off. However, it is also impossible for me to help you deal with the other companions of Z-Way. You and I are enemies after all. I have to return to my clan. You want to return to the 11th path? I don't know which path I will return to. The 11th path isn't where the foundation of my mermaid race lies. However, if the great divine priest knows that I have escaped from danger, he will probably summon me back to the 6th path. After all, Lord Blood God's sacrificial offering has already been completed. In short, you don't have to worry. Even if I return to my clan, I will not help them deal with you. I, Aphrodite, will never attack my benefactor. If I violate this oath, there will be an arrow like this. Aphrodite casually took out a golden arrow and broke it into two. She kept one end of the arrow and passed the other end of the arrowhead to Ning Fan's hand. Similarly, if you have any difficulties, as long as you don't harm the interests of the Z-Way immortal cultivators, bring this arrowhead to me. I can help you complete a task. You have done me a great favor. If I have the aptitude to become a saint, the great divine priest might show mercy to my mermaid race. This favor is very heavy and I will definitely repay it. Meng Lang, no, Ning Fan, goodbye. As soon as she finished speaking, Even this half-saint Aphrodite also flew out of the world of glaciers and left. Ning Fan still trusted Aphrodite very much. She was a woman who valued her integrity more than her life. She never betrayed her clan even after being tortured by him. Now that she had made an oath, she naturally would not betray him. Unfortunately, once she was released, he would no longer be able to collect the mermaid's tears in the future. If he wants to cultivate the heavenly Goyu quickly, he would need to find another method. Forget it. Anyway, after this incident, he could no longer torture Aphrodite ruthlessly anymore. It's fine if she is released. It was impossible for him to imprison and torture his benefactor. After all, this woman had given him some advice before. She could be considered as his benefactor. Rumble. The entire world of glaciers suddenly trembled. It seemed like the world plane was on the verge of collapse due to the destruction of the 8 ice mountains. Seeing that one of the rare connection points of reincarnation in this world was about to be destroyed, Ning Fan felt that it was a pity, but he was powerless to stop the collapse of the world plane. Thus, he could only give up. When the world plane collapsed, Ning Fan only managed to bring away the unconscious Shin Kong Di and the others. Not long after they left the world of glaciers, the space of the entire world collapsed. This connection point of reincarnation would never exist again. Ning Fan sighed regretfully and woke up Shin Kong Di and the others. As soon as they woke up, they nervously asked Ning Fan about what happened after they fell unconscious. Ning Fan's anger rose when he saw this group of idiotic teammates. If the one who was sealed was not a female quasi-saint but a male quasi-saint, or if he was not a first-level quasi-saint but a second-level or third-level quasi-saint, Ning Fan would very likely lose his life in this world of glaciers today. In order to search for treasures, these people asked him to break the formation without even knowing the details of this world of glaciers. They almost got him into trouble. In that case, it was naturally impossible for Ning Fan to distribute the 8 innate magic treasures that he had obtained to them. When Shin Kong Di and the others asked him about it, he only said that the magic treasures had been snatched away by the female quasi-saint. When they asked where the female quasi-saint had gone to, he said that she had run away. As for everything that happened between her and quasi-saint Aphrodite, he did not mention a word about it. As soon as they heard that the innate magic treasures were snatched away by the female quasi-saint, Shin Kong Di and the others felt that it was a pity. However, at the same time, they felt that it was very normal. The enemy was a quasi-saint after all. It was already very commendable for Ning Fan to be able to save them. How would he have the ability to keep the magic treasures? Perhaps it was because Ning Fan had given up the magic treasures that the female quasi-saint did not chase after them relentlessly. Fellow Taoist Ning, thank you for saving our lives. We will definitely repay your kindness in the future. Shin Kong Di and the others were naturally grateful to Ning Fan for escaping death. Then, when they thought of how terrifying the siren song was, they broke out in cold sweat. Seeing that these incompetent teammates at least knew how to repay his kindness, Ning Fan's mood became slightly better. As for their repayment, he did not care about it at all. Even though the innate magic treasures are gone, there should be other treasures that were not snatched away by that female quasi-saint, right? I remember that there was a half-completed 10 transformations ancestral pill in the last cave dwelling. I remember that there was also a strange iron box. It was tightly sealed and I couldn't open it no matter how hard I tried. That iron box seemed to have a trace of Void Lord Water's chi. I wonder what is sealed inside it. May I ask Brother Ning if you can keep that treasure? Shin Kong Di and the others asked expectantly. Iron box? Void Lord Water? Ning Fan was surprised. Before he woke up Shin Kong Di and the others, he did see the Void Emperor holding onto an iron box tightly. That iron box was taken away by him. Now, it was hidden in the profound Yin world. He did not carefully sense the iron box. Thus, he naturally did not know that the iron box contained a trace of Void Lord Water's power. Could it be that there were some treasures in those cave dwellings that were valuable to him? For example, this iron box with an unknown origin. Is there such an iron box? I just thought that it was just an ordinary iron box. That was why that quasi-saint took it away from me. However, I did not risk my life to get it back. Instead, I seized the opportunity to escape with my fellow Taoists. Ning Fan said in an act. Where's the pill? That half-completed ancestral pill. It was also taken away. Damn it. That quasi-saint has gone too far. Ning Fan did not feel any guilt for deceiving these incompetent teammates. He also did not feel guilty for taking their treasures for himself. When Shen Kongdi and the others heard that their treasures were taken away by the enemy, they immediately cursed. Of course, they were cursing their enemies. They were very grateful to Ning Fan, who was their savior. Even though none of them were righteous people, as immortal emperors, how could they not know the harm of owing someone karma? Their intention to repay Ning Fan's kindness was sincere. All of them were thinking about how to repay Ning Fan's karma in the future. Ning Fan, on the other hand, did not care about this little bit of karma. Since everything here had been settled, he just wanted to return to the Myriad Saints Pass as soon as possible. He wanted to see what mysteries were hidden inside the so-called Void Lord Water's iron box and what kind of treasures he could obtain. Speaking of which, that half-completed 10 transformations ancestral pill seemed to have some tricks up its sleeves. Chapter 1141. 10 Billion Rain Divine Clone. An ancient life-saving divine ability obtained from the last glacial cave abode. It was the technique that made the water sect's 8 disciples famous. When facing certain death, this technique could allow one to split into billions of clones and escape. The deeper one's comprehension of the water element, the harder it would be to kill the clones created by this technique. 10 Lions 10 Elephants Pill. A semi-finished 10 transformation ancestral pill. It seems to be a pill that strengthens the physical body, but its effects are unknown. Rusty Iron Box. A strange iron box that ordinary low-grade innate magic treasures can't break. It seems to have the aura of the Water Palm Master. Connate magic treasures, 8 in perfect condition, 2 half destroyed. As soon as he returned to the Myriad Saints Pass, he went into seclusion to study the loot he got from this trip. He'd obtained quite a lot of spoils from this trip, and he'd obtained 8 intact low-grade natural world magic treasures. To ordinary immortal emperors, 8 innate magic treasures were enough to drive them crazy. However, to Ning Fan, these innate magic treasures were only fit to be used to refine divine liquid regardless of whether they were in good condition or not. From the abode of the eldest of the 8 disciples of the Water Sect, Ning Fan also obtained a scroll of a divine ability called 10 Billion Rain Spirit Clone. When he was in the Glacial Immortals Cave, Ning Fan did not look at this jade slip in detail because he felt that he did not lack any divine abilities. Even if this was a scroll of an ancient grand cultivation realm divine ability, it would most likely be useless to him. However, after taking a closer look, he discovered that 10 Billion Rain's avatar wasn't as useless as he had imagined. If this technique was successfully cultivated, one could shatter one's body into billions of avatars at the moment of certain death. At that time, as long as one of the avatars managed to escape, one's life would be saved. It was extremely practical. Many of the enemies Ning Fan had fought before knew similar abilities to escape for their lives. Ning Fan had never cultivated this kind of ability before. Now that he had obtained this technique, he could make up for one of his shortcomings. This was the shortcoming of escaping techniques. Considering that there were heaven-defying monsters like the blood god Gung Wu in the eastern boundary river, Ning Fan did not mind learning more life-saving techniques to deal with the possible dangers. The 10 Lions 10 Elephants pill was the semi-finished product of the 10 transformations ancestral pill that Ning Fan obtained from the Glacial Immortal Cave. Using his innate ability that allowed him to communicate with all living things, Ning Fan directly talked to the pill and asked for its name. Unfortunately, the spiritual intelligence of the pill was too low. Ning Fan was unable to ask about its specific medicinal effects. He could only roughly guess that it was a type of pill that could strengthen one's physical body. Strengthening the physical body? Ning Fan shook his head. His physical body was already extremely strong. Because the foundation of his physical body was too high, even if he consumed this pill, the effects would not be too obvious. After all, this was just a semi-finished pill. If it was the real 10 transformations ancestral pill, Ning Fan might have a higher expectation. At this moment, what he was looking forward to more was the mysterious rusty iron box. It was an iron box that emitted the chi of a water realm master. Ning Fan had no idea what was inside the iron box. He was very curious about what exactly was sealed inside the iron box. Why was it able to emit the chi of the water immortal realm? Besides, the iron box was extremely sturdy. Even ordinary innate magical treasures could not break it. This made Ning Fan even more certain that this iron box was extraordinary. Just what kind of characters were the 8 children of the water sect? They were unrivaled elites who had once worked together to defeat the East Sky Ancestor Emperor. Since the Eastern Sky Ancestor Emperor was able to unify the Eastern Sky in that ancient era, he had to be a great cultivator from ancient times. Since the water sect's 8 disciples were able to defeat such an existence, they naturally couldn't be ordinary people. The Immortal Realm Master. It was not impossible for outstanding individuals like the 8 disciples of the water sect to cultivate the water immortal realm. Otherwise, how could they defeat the Eastern Sky Ancestor Emperor? Perhaps what is sealed inside this iron box is the inheritance of the water immortal realm of the 8 disciples of the water sect. What's more, there might be a Tao fruit of the water immortal realm directly sealed inside. When he thought of this possibility, Ning Fan could not help but feel a little excited even with his temperament. He had already cultivated the wood immortal realm and used it to cultivate the wood godhead. Then he became the father god of wood. If there was really a Tao fruit of the water immortal realm in this iron box, he had great confidence that he could cultivate another water immortal realm and the water immortal realm. If he was lucky, he could even become the father god of water in this era that was lacking in divine beings and rule over all water cultivators. Becoming the father god of wood brought Ning Fan a lot of benefits. Not to mention the super strong recovery effect, the fact that it could increase the power of his wood element magic treasures by a level out of thin air already made Ning Fan very excited. If he could become the father god of water, putting everything else aside, just the power of the bottle of water drowning the world in the future would no longer be at the mid-grade innate realm. It would probably rise to the next level and reach the high-grade innate realm. That level of power could probably even drown a quasi-saint realm expert. Will there be a Tao fruit of the water immortal realm in this iron box? Ning Fan activated the 7 treasures wondrous tree with anticipation and carefully broke the seal on the iron box. With a cracking sound, the iron box was opened. What entered Ning Fan's eyes was not a Tao fruit of the water immortal realm but a fingernail-sized pebble. Isn't it a Tao fruit of the water immortal realm? Sure enough, a Tao fruit of the water immortal realm can only be found by luck. How could it be so easy to pick it up? The higher the expectation, the greater the disappointment. Ning Fan shook his head. With the firmness of his Tao heart, he instantly suppressed his disappointment. With a calm expression, he carefully examined the inconspicuous pebble in the iron box. Even if it was not a Tao fruit of the water immortal realm, it was probably not an ordinary pebble since the 8 disciples of the water sect kept it so carefully. It was a black and gray pebble. It was a stone that Ning Fan had never seen before in the age of Dharma decay. When he touched it, he could feel a massive amount of water elemental power from the pebble. This pebble naturally contained a trace of Tao fruit of the water immortal realm. It was indeed extraordinary. If it is added into a Tao tool magic treasure, it would probably greatly increase the water elemental attack power of the magic treasure. What kind of pebble are you? Ning Fan asked the pebble. Buzhou Mountain Ridge, Buzhou Mountain Ridge, Buzhou Mountain Ridge. The pebble tossed and turned but could only answer with this sentence. Buzhou Mountain Ridge? I feel like I've heard this name somewhere before. Ning Fan frowned and tried his best to recall the origin of this name. Even though cultivators had a photographic memory, it was also because of this that the amount of information stored in their minds was too large. Even though they could remember some unintentional information, it would take them a lot of effort to recall it. Not long after that, Ning Fan recalled where he had heard this name before. In the past, in order to forge the ocean-defying sword, Old Wu had given Ning Fan a yellowed ancient book which recorded the blueprints of many Tao tools with ancient diagrams. Barbarian Weapon Mountain Sea Axe. This axe can be ranked as one of the 66th grade weapons of the Holy Sect. However, it lacks the ancient country wind crystal, the earth material, the Buzhou mountain ridge, and the earth giant's tooth. I've spent my entire life trying to forge it. It's a pity. The Buzhou mountain ridge is a supreme immortal material that can be used to forge a 66th grade Dao tool with ancient diagrams. One should know that the original grade of the ocean-defying sword was just a 98th grade Dao tool with ancient diagrams. Even though Ning Fan had used a lot of the eternal everlasting rain to forge the ocean-defying sword, the ocean-defying sword he forged was only equivalent to an 89th grade Dao tool with ancient diagrams. Wouldn't an immortal material that can be used to forge a 66th grade Dao tool with ancient diagrams be even more precious than the eternal everlasting rain? Currently, Ning Fan only needed a small piece of the Buzhou mountain ridge. He did not have enough materials. Of course, he would not forge some mountain sea axe that was a 66th grade barbarian weapon. What he wanted to do was to forge this precious Buzhou mountain ridge into the ocean-defying sword. The current ocean-defying sword was already extremely powerful after being embedded with the Heaven Gajad. If he fuses a piece of the Buzhou mountain ridge into it, its power would certainly be even more terrifying. The only problem was that fusing the Buzhou mountain ridge into the ocean-defying sword had completely deviated from the blueprints of the sword. Without the guidance of the blueprints, it was not an easy task for Ning Fan to perfectly forge the Buzhou mountain ridge into the ocean-defying sword with his own forging techniques. However, speaking of which, the blueprints of Dao tools with ancient diagrams were all created by the predecessors. Since the predecessors could create Dao tools with ancient diagrams without relying on blueprints, why couldn't Ning Fan use his own talents to find a way to add other immortal materials into the ocean-defying sword? He immediately got to work. In the next few months, Ning Fan spent all his time studying this matter. In the beginning, the process of adding the Buzhou mountain ridge into the ocean-defying sword did not go smoothly. This was because even though the Buzhou mountain ridge possessed the power of the water sovereign, it was still a mountain after all. As for the main material of the ocean-defying sword, the eternal inextinguishable rain, it was the sea. How could it be so easy to merge a mountain and a sea into one? Later on, however, Ning Fan suddenly recalled the scenes when he became the barbarian god. He recalled the mountains and seas in the eyes of the barbarians. As for the barbarians, they cultivated by imitating the ancient divine beings. Hence, when Ning Fan creatively fused a trace of divine power into the ocean-defying sword, the power of the mountains and seas between the eternal inextinguishable rain and the Buzhou mountain ridge achieved a balance. A brand new ocean-defying sword was forged by Ning Fan. It was still a beautiful sword with a dark blue body that flowed like water. However, what was different was that there were some mountain and sea lines on the surface of the sword that was like waves. The ocean-defying sword was originally an incomparably beautiful sword. As such, after Ning Fan finished forging the ocean-defying sword, he began to refine innate magic treasures and cultivate the 10 billion rain spirit clone. As for the 10 lions and 10 elephants pill, Ning Fan threw it to a corner and did not pay much attention to it. After a few more months, Ning Fan successfully cultivated the 10 billion rain spirit clone. Only then did he consume the 10 lions and 10 elephants pill with the thought that it was better than nothing. He really did not have high expectations for this pill. However, reality played a joke on him. The Dao fruit of the water sovereign realm that he was looking forward to did not appear. The 10 lions and 10 elephants pill that he neglected gave him an unexpected surprise. After consuming this pill, Ning Fan's physical defense did not improve, but his strength skyrocketed, more than doubling. This greatly surprised Ning Fan. One should know that his current physical body was already stronger than most of the immortal emperors. With such a strong foundation, it could actually double his strength. This 10 lions and 10 elephants pill was a little incredible. It was clearly just a half-completed pill. How could it be so heaven-defying? If it was so heaven-defying, why didn't the 8 disciples of the water sect eat it in the past? Instead, they sealed it and kept it? Ning Fan could not figure it out. Of course, he did not know that this 10 lions and 10 elephants pill was not something that belonged to the illusory world. Instead, it was a pill that had drifted to the illusory world from the true world. Even though it was just a half-completed pill, that pill refinement master had used the lives of 10 half-sage Saint Realm lion demons and 10 half-sage Saint Realm elephant demons to concoct this pill. The reason why it was only a half-completed pill was not because that pill refinement master was not capable enough. Instead, it was because the true 10 lions and 10 elephants pill could not be concocted using half-Saint Realm materials. Instead, it needed half-Saint Realm materials. Even though that pill refinement master had superb pill concoction techniques, he was just a first-level half-saint. Naturally, he did not have the ability to hunt 20 half-saints to concoct the pill. Thus, this pill could only be a half-completed pill. However, it still had an extremely heaven-defying medicinal effect. The 8 disciples of the water sect obtained this pill by chance and were shocked by it. It was not that they did not want to eat it, but they did not dare to. This pill could greatly increase the strength of a cultivator's physical body. However, the process of increasing one's strength was extremely dangerous. If one's physical body was not strong enough, not only would they not be able to obtain any benefits from the pill, but their bodies would also directly explode due to the medicinal effect. It was extremely dangerous. Even though the 8 disciples of the water sect possessed great abilities, they were not experts in body refinement. Their physical bodies were not as strong as Ning Fan's. Thus, they naturally did not dare to consume this pill. Ning Fan, on the other hand, was different. Not only did he have a strong physical body, but his recovery rate was also very high. Thus, he did not feel much danger when he consumed this pill. However, he could not understand why the 8 disciples of the water sect did not consume this pill. In short, this pill allowed Ning Fan's strength to skyrocket. It was a good thing. After his strength had doubled, Ning Fan was pleased to find that he could use the sea-calming divine needle with ease. Besides, it was no longer difficult to wield the ocean-defying sword that had increased in weight to 18 stars. Everything was developing in a good direction. In his spare time, Ning Fan wanted to continue cultivating the Langya Heavenly Hook Jade. Unfortunately, without Aphrodite's tears, his cultivation progress was extremely slow. He could not help but miss the days when Aphrodite was by his side. Of course, this kind of nostalgia had nothing to do with love. What Ning Fan missed was the large amount of tears of the mermaid. Unfortunately, this lady has given me some guidance. Even if she is still here, I can't go against my principles to bully her and seize the tears of the mermaid. Speaking of which, what exactly is the mysterious seed that was nurtured in my primordial spirit that day? With this seed in my body, the samsara power in my body is increasing day by day. It has actually reached the point where I can condense a ring. Ning Fan activated the samsara power in his body and a purplish-golden ring appeared on his fingertip. The sun of samsara in his body would slowly grow along with his daily cultivation. Currently, the amount of samsara power he had was only the size of a ring. According to Ning Fan's estimation, if he cultivates for another few thousand years, his samsara power would probably be enough to condense a halo the size of a bracelet. If he cultivates for a few 100,000 years, he would probably be able to condense a halo the size of a headband. According to the current growth rate, he might even be able to condense a gigantic halo the size of the sacred beginning halo after cultivating for a few 100 million years. Of course, he was too lazy to wait for a few 100 million years to cultivate a mere sacred beginning halo. Too many things could be done in a few 100 million years. Even though the mysterious seed could increase his samsara power, the speed of its growth was really too slow for Ning Fan. This was really better than nothing. Ding ding dinged before Ning Fan entered the profound in-world for his seclusion, the sound-transmitting jade talisman given to him by Divine Space Emperor and the others suddenly emitted a faint sound. Ning Fan frowned slightly. He knew that it was Divine Space Emperor and the others who were outside contacting him. Before he went into seclusion, he had told the others not to disturb him. Since the other party took the initiative to contact him, something must have happened in the Myriad Saints Pass. It seems like there's some important military news. Ning Fan stopped his seclusion and sent out a series of hand seals towards the sound-transmitting jade talisman. Divine Space Emperor's anxious voice immediately came from the jade talisman. confirming Ning Fan's guess. This is bad. This is bad. Brother Ning, don't go into seclusion anymore. A great disaster is upon you. The foreign races have actually sent 2 half-step saints to attack my Myriad Saints Pass. One of them is the famous Myriad Saint Dragon King of the 9th Path, while the other one is a real ancient devil. Chapter 1142. There are actually 2 half-step saints here, and one of them is an ancient devil. Could it be the ancient devil that reappeared along with the Devil Conferral Summit? After hearing his words, Ning Fan's expression changed slightly. Without any hesitation, he immediately flew out of the profound Yin world. Outside the Myriad Saints Pass, towering waves towered to the sky. Among the wolves, millions of non-humankind beasts had been attacking the defensive formation of the 10,000 Saints Pass fearlessly. As soon as the foreign race experts in front were killed by the formation light, the foreign race experts in the back quickly took their place. These low-level foreign tribes were natural warriors. They had no fear of death in their hearts. The blood of the dead dyed the Myriad Saints Pass River red, but none of the low-level foreign tribes retreated. There were also 12 immortal emperors occupying different directions of the Myriad Saints Pass, working together to cast the Crepe Myrtle Divine Art to assist in breaking the array. Of these 12 immortal emperors, 9 were from the 9th Path, while the other 3 were the Eastern Sky's traitorous emperors. It was still daytime, but under the joint effort of the 12 emperors, the entire Eminent Saints Pass was shrouded in an abnormal darkness. In the night sky, countless myrtle stars formed by magical power hung high in the sky. As the 12 emperors joined hands to cast the spell, the great stars of Z-Way turned into a purple meteor shower that smashed down toward the 10,000 Saints Pass. The falling stars were like the end of the world. This was an ancient formation-breaking technique passed down from the Z-Way celestial domain. It could gather the energy of many celestial emperors to form a meteor shower to shatter the formation, and it was extremely formidable. Although the Myriad Saints Pass array was powerful, under the combined attack of the 12 immortal emperors, countless cracks soon appeared on it. Crack, crack, crack. Those cracks were like a spider web, constantly increasing. Finally, there was a place where the array formation was completely broken, revealing a gap that was several zhang wide. Perhaps not long ago, the third waterway was successfully recovered by the Eastern Sky cultivators, which stimulated these strange race powerhouses. The invasion of the foreign races this time was more ferocious than any of the previous ones, and they were willing to disregard everything. In less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn, a hole had been opened in the 10,000 Saints Pass Grand Array. Not good. The array formation had actually cracked. Quickly fill up the gap. Don't let the outsiders get inside the formation. Some Eastern Sky cultivators were greatly alarmed and immediately separated several dozen people to block the gap and restore the array formation. After sacrificing more than 10 lives, the Eastern Sky cultivators were barely able to kill the several strange race beasts that had rushed into the array light, blocking the gap in the array formation. However, not long after, 2 more spell formations were breached by the outsiders. The Eastern Sky cultivators hurriedly repaired the array, exterminating the strange race giant beasts that rushed inside the array. In less than 100 breaths of time, there were already several hundred Eastern Sky cultivators that had fallen. What was even worse was that a foreign race's heavenly emperor took the opportunity to rush inside the array formation before the Eastern Sky cultivators could repair a gap. Alone, he killed his way into the 10,000 Saints Pass. It was a half-human, half-insect outsider immortal emperor. His upper body was human, and his lower body was that of a water reptile. He came from the 9th Path's water demon race, and his cultivation base was at the eternal 6 tribulations. Before the Eminent Saints Pass Grand Array was completely breached, recklessly rushing inside the Grand Array was a very dangerous thing to do. However, this celestial emperor of the Aquatic Serpent clan wasn't afraid of this little bit of risk, because he simply didn't put the Eastern Sky cultivators in his eyes. Among the cultivators guarding the pass, there didn't seem to be the rumored white-robed king of hell. Thus, why did he need to be careful? He could directly rush inside and start a massacre, Wouldn't that be even more delightful? After the celestial emperor of the aquatic serpent clan entered the pass, he immediately started a massacre, and immediately a large number of eastern sky cultivators were killed by him. Seeing this foreign race celestial emperor actually daring enough to directly rush into the array formation, among the eastern sky cultivators, Ming He Boy, who also had an eternal six tribulations cultivation base, flashed and blocked in front of the celestial emperor of the aquatic serpent clan. He turned his hand and threw out a handful of rotten silver sand, attacking the celestial emperor. That rotten silver sand emitted a pre-celestial aura, and it seemed to be a low-grade pre-celestial magic weapon. Once it was thrown out, it immediately turned into a burst of silver demon wind that swept toward the celestial emperor of the aquatic serpent clan. The water serpent clan celestial emperor was killing to his heart's content. Relying on his strength, he simply didn't care about Ming He Boy's attack and was directly hit by that silver demon wind. That silver demon wind was actually quite fierce. Once it hit the celestial emperor of the aquatic serpent clan, it immediately froze him, turning him into a giant ice man. Seeing that he had subdued the enemy celestial emperor with one move, Ming He Boy was quite proud. He thought that the opponent was only SOSO, daring to directly rush into the enemy's formation with just this little ability. But in the next moment, Ming He Boy couldn't laugh anymore. He saw that on the giant ice, there were suddenly dense cracks. The celestial emperor of the aquatic serpent clan had actually broken the giant ice and escaped from the ice completely by relying on his physical strength. Ming He Boy was shocked, and he once again threw out the rotten silver sand, which turned into a silver demon wind that swept toward the enemy. The celestial emperor of the aquatic serpent clan snorted disdainfully, and two purple rays shot out from his eyes. With a sweep of the purple rays, Ming He Boy's silver demon wind suddenly vanished like smoke in thin air. The magic weapon returned to its original form of the rotten silver sand, and it fell from the sky, its power greatly reduced. No matter how Ming He Boy urged it, the rotten silver sand was unexpectedly unable to be used in a short period of time. This is the lost treasure divine light from the ancient times. You actually cultivated a trace of it. Ming He Boy's expression changed greatly. The opponent had this kind of ability, and his rotten silver sand couldn't be used. Although you're an eastern sky ant, your eyesight isn't bad, but it's a pity that your ability is a bit weak. The celestial emperor of the aquatic serpent clan sneered, and with his strong physical body, he brazenly rammed toward Ming He Boy. Ming He Boy's innate magic treasure was knocked down by the opponent's divine power, and he lost almost 90% of his strength. How could he be a match for the opponent? In less than 100 rounds, he was seriously injured by the celestial emperor of the aquatic serpent clan. Fellow Taoist Ming He, let me help you. Seeing that Ming He Boy was in a disadvantageous situation, the seventh tribulation celestial emperor of the red camel emperor immediately turned into a blood-colored light and rushed to help. But halfway, the blood-colored light was intercepted by another alien race celestial emperor. Another alien race celestial emperor rushed into the array and invaded the interior of the 10,000 Saints Pass. This was a seventh tribulation celestial emperor of the Sand Soul clan. There wasn't a trace of flesh on his body, and his body was completely made of crystal sand, like a human-shaped sand monster. Scarlet Divine Spear. Seeing another alien race celestial emperor invading the 10,000 Saints Pass, the red camel emperor didn't dare to hold back. He immediately took out his innate magic treasure, the Scarlet Divine Spear. The blood-colored spear radiance covered 1,000 miles, and the spear pierced toward the celestial emperor of the Sand Soul clan. The celestial emperor of the Sand Soul clan only sneered at the incoming spear. He didn't dodge and let the spear penetrate his body. You didn't dodge and took my spear head-on. What a fool! The red camel emperor sneered. His Scarlet Divine Spear was an evil magic treasure. Its attack power wasn't as strong as a low-grade innate magic treasure, but it was attached to a precious spirit iron called the Blood Curse. It was very dangerous to be stabbed by the Scarlet Divine Spear. As long as the enemy's blood was drunk by the Scarlet Divine Spear, they would be cursed by the spear, and half of their cultivation would be sealed. At the same time, the Red Camel Emperor could vaguely sense that the Celestial Emperor of the Sand Soul clan was slightly stronger than him. He might not be a match for this person in a head-on battle. But if the opponent was hit by the Scarlet Divine Spear Blood Curse, and half of his cultivation would be sealed, then it would be a different story. Your cultivation is sealed, so you're no longer a match for me. The Red Camel Emperor waved his spear and stabbed at the Celestial Emperor of the Sand Soul clan again. The Celestial Emperor of the Sand Soul clan had a look of disdain on his face. His cultivation wasn't sealed by the Scarlet Divine Spear at all, because there was no such thing as blood in his body structure, so it was impossible for him to be cursed by the Scarlet Divine Spear. You have some ability, but it's not enough. Sandcast Monk True Body. This time, the Celestial Emperor of the Sand Soul clan didn't take the spear attack head-on. Instead, he transformed into his primordial true body and became a sand monk that was hundreds of feet tall. 108 sand beads flew out, and with just one strike, the Red Camel Emperor was blown away while coughing out blood. His face turned pale with fright. This guy's primordial true body is so powerful. Only an 8 Tribulation Celestial Emperor can take it down. After a few more rounds, the Red Camel Emperor was already covered in wounds and was covered in blood. He couldn't even take care of himself, let alone help Ming He Boy. Fellow Taoist Su Kong, fellow Taoist Shen Kong, quickly help me. The Red Camel Emperor had no choice but to call for help. Unfortunately, when he called for help, he discovered that the two great emperors, Su Kong and Shen Kong, were in a more dangerous situation than him. The two of them were actually surrounded by several foreign race great emperors. At this moment, more foreign race immortal emperors directly entered the 10,000 Saints Pass. Even the 3 traders, Ma, Dong Ling and Ghost Flower, also entered the 10,000 Saints Pass and joined the team that besieged the 2 great emperors. The 2 great emperors of the Divine Void were considered experts in the Eastern Sky, but facing the siege of several times their number of immortal emperors, how could they be a match for the other side? They couldn't even protect themselves. It was a pity that there were only 4 immortal emperors in the 9th road of the 10,000 Saints Pass. Once the 4 immortal emperors were stalled by the enemy, the rest of the Eastern Sky cultivators immediately suffered. More and more Eastern Sky cultivators were torn to pieces by the foreign race powerhouses that poured into the 10,000 Saints Pass. Even immortal kings and immortal venerables like Lu Feng and Yun Lei were surrounded by a large number of foreign race immortal kings and immortal venerables. In the distance, the 2 half-step saints, Myriad Saint Dragon King and Taoist Xianwei, were guarding outside the 10,000 Saints Pass. They did not even bother to take action. The military strength of the Eastern Sky cultivators in the 10,000 Saints Pass was too weak. There was no need for them to take action at all. Originally, they thought that Ning Fan had already rushed to the 9th road of the 10,000 Saints Pass. That was why they had planned for a long time and prepared many backup plans before attacking the 10,000 Saints Pass. However, it seemed like Ning Fan was not here at all. In that case, the many methods that they had prepared seemed to be useless. Humph! I paid a huge price to open the devil cavity and directly descend to the eastern heaven from the northern heaven. I came here for that little Ning Fan. Unexpectedly, he is not here. How disappointing. Taoist Xianwei said with dissatisfaction. That little Yen Luo probably knew that our army had sent out 2 half-step saints at once. That's why he secretly escaped. What a cunning kid. Myriad Saint Dragon King said with a smile. Humph! He can't escape. The immemorial lightning cauldron in his possession is something that my Devil Conferral Summit wants. After this matter is over, I will go to other places to track his whereabouts. I must get that item back. Taoist Xianwei said fiercely. The immemorial lightning cauldron? Speaking of which, this kid also has the ocean-stabilizing divine pillar and the fate-severing sword of the great divine priest of the eastern border river. What a pity! What a pity! If he doesn't run away, it won't be difficult for me to capture him if I join forces with you. The great merit that was already in my hands has flown away just like that. Myriad Saint Dragon King felt that it was a pity. Join forces? Is there a need for that? I alone am enough to kill that kid. Taoist Xian Wei said in a conceited manner. Myriad Saint Dragon King shook his head. The ancient devil half-step saint in front of him was good in every aspect. However, he was too arrogant, which made it hard for others to get close to him. However, he did have the right to be arrogant. Even though he was just a half-step saint, he was still a famous figure in the ancient times. While Myriad Saint Dragon King was recalling Taoist Xuanwei's achievements in the ancient times, something strange happened. The battlefield of the Myriad Saints Pass, which was originally filled with deafening battle cries, suddenly became strangely quiet. Millions of experts of the foreign races suddenly felt their hair stand on end. Cold sweat dripped down their foreheads as if they were facing a formidable enemy. The immortal emperors of the foreign races who were attacking the eastern skies stopped their attacks. Each of their expressions changed greatly when they saw a figure suddenly appearing in the battlefield. It was a white-robed young man. He did not release his baleful chi, nor did he release his aura force. Just by tearing open the space of the profound in-world and returning to the battlefield of the Myriad Saints Pass, he made all the enemies feel an immense pressure. Ning Fan had returned. As soon as he received God Emperor Shinspace's call, he immediately rushed to the outside world. He thought that the foreign races would be held back by the formation when they launched a large-scale attack. However, he did not expect that a large number of them had already forced their way into the formation. Brother Ning, you've come out from your seclusion. That's great. You're here. We will definitely be able to defend the Myriad Saints Pass. As soon as God Emperor Shinspace and the others saw Ning Fan, they were overjoyed as if they had found their backbone. White Robe Yama. Why is he here? Isn't he not in the Myriad Saints Pass? He wasn't here just now. Why did he suddenly appear out of nowhere? Those immortal venerables and immortal kings of the foreign races gasped when they saw Ning Fan. Ning Fan's notoriety was too great. They could not help but be afraid of him. The immortal venerables and immortal kings of the foreign races who were attacking LV Feng, Yun Lei and the others immediately retreated from the range of the Myriad Saints Pass formation like a receding tide. They returned to their own formation as if they were facing a formidable enemy. The immortal emperors who were attacking the eastern sky also wanted to flee. They wanted to escape from the formation of the Myriad Saints Pass immediately. They dared to attack the Void Emperor and the others while resisting the formation, but they did not dare to attack Ning Fan while being suppressed by the formation. Unfortunately, it was a little too late for them to escape from the formation now. In a flash, Ning Fan caught up to that immortal emperor of the Water Demon clan. He summoned the sea-defying sword and slashed at him. A moment ago, this immortal emperor of the Water Demon clan was still acting high and mighty, beating up Ming He Boy until he did not know which way was north. At the next moment, he was so frightened by Ning Fan that he ran away immediately. He did not even have the courage to face Ning Fan. He secretly cursed his bad luck. Why did Ning Fan only chase after him when so many immortal emperors had rushed into the formation of the Myriad Saints Pass? There is no justice in this world. Seeing how the sea-defying sword slashed down in an incomparably stunning manner, engulfing heaven and earth with its water-blue sword light, how would this immortal emperor of the Water Demon clan dare to take Ning Fan's attack head-on? Without any hesitation, he used the treasure-falling divine light in an attempt to break the power of Ning Fan's Dao weapon and save his life. Unfortunately, he had underestimated the grade of the sea-defying sword. His treasure-falling divine light had only scratched the surface. It could only fall on some weaker low-grade innate magic treasures. It could not fall on the sea-defying sword at all. In the end, this sword slashed down unstoppably. The immortal emperor of the Water Demon clan felt as if he had been struck by 18 cultivation stars. His steel skin that was as hard as star iron could not stop the sword from cutting into his body at all. Moreover, the moment the sword pierced through his body, thousands of heaven-hooking jades exploded inside his body like thousands of suns. Bume dignified Sixth Tribulation immortal emperor who could beat up Ming He Boy until he lost his bearings was actually blown up by Ning Fan's sword and his demon soul was taken away. Moreover, at the moment when he killed the enemy, Ning Fan's Dao seizing void technique was activated on its own. He seized a trace of the cultivation method of the treasure-falling divine light from the blood and flesh essence of the immortal emperor of the Water Demon clan. This surprised Ning Fan slightly. He did not expect that he would get a spoil of war just after killing the first immortal emperor of a foreign race. Besides, these spoils seemed to be somewhat useful. Fellow Taoist Ning actually killed the opponent that I couldn't defeat after fighting so hard. Ming He Boy was stunned. In an instant he almost lost himself. His emotions were indescribably complicated. The Void Space Emperor, Shen Space Emperor and the Red Camel Emperor were also stunned by this scene. All the immortal emperors of the foreign races were shocked by the unparalleled might of this sword. They fled even faster. Seizing the moment when Ning Fan killed the immortal emperor of the Water Demon clan, they all escaped from the formation of the Myriad Saints Pass. If their enemies were weak, they would dare to go against the formation and kill them. However, in front of Ning Fan, they did not dare to be so arrogant. They no longer dared to stay inside the formation. Only those low-grade immortal emperors who attacked the formation did not run away. Even though they were afraid of Ning Fan's heavy pressure, they still dashed towards him without fear of death. After that, they were all killed by Ning Fan. These low-grade immortal emperors could not harm Ning Fan at all. In just a few breaths, there was no longer a single enemy invading the formation of the Myriad Saints Pass. This is the white-robed Yama. He can actually kill an immortal emperor with a single sword. Even I can't do this. Myriad Saint Dragon King felt a chill run down his spine. The way he looked at Ning Fan was as if he was looking at a monster. Taoist Xian Wei, on the other hand, burst into laughter. His battle intent was high. As an ancient devil, he was never afraid of fighting a strong enemy. Xian Wei knew that he would also not be able to achieve Ning Fan's incomparably stunning sword attack without using his poison technique. If he still looked down on Ning Fan before this, all of his disdain towards Ning Fan had turned into respect at this moment. That's how it should be. Only by being this strong will it be interesting. Only then will this young man be worthy of being hunted. Not good. The white-robed Yama is leaving the formation alone with his sword. He actually gave up the protection of the formation. He actually took the initiative to leave the range of the formation. Does he really want to fight against our army of millions of troops alone? Even though we have lost one of our immortal emperors, we still have 11 immortal emperors and 2 half-step saints. How arrogant! This white-robe Yama is really arrogant. Since he has walked out of the formation, let's quickly surround and kill him. All of a sudden, the members of the foreign races clamored. After Ning Fan casually refined the demon soul of the immortal sovereign of the Water Serpent clan with the divine refining cauldron, he directly chased after the other immortal emperors of the foreign races and exited the formation of the Myriad Saints Pass. The other cultivators of the Eastern Heaven did not dare to walk out of the formation recklessly in front of the army of foreign races. The reason why Ning Fan dared to do so was because he had the confidence to do so. He had annihilated more than 10 million troops of foreign races. Even though there were millions of troops of foreign races in front of him, he was not afraid of them. Even though there were many immortal emperors on the enemy's side, they were still not enough to make him fearful. Only the 2 half-step saints could make him take them seriously. But that was all. His magic power of 13,500 tribulations had surpassed all the half-step saints in the Dharma ending era. Even though he was not a match for half-step saints, he was not afraid of mere half-step saints. Even if there was an ancient devil among the 2 half-step saints. As soon as the immortal emperors of the foreign races saw Ning Fan walking out of the formation, they immediately wanted to surround him. Ning Fan glanced around and suddenly saw an immortal emperor with wood element cultivation base among the immortal emperors of the foreign races. He seemed to be the leader of the encirclement. He immediately sneered and directly dashed towards that immortal emperor with wood element. That was an 8 tribulation immortal emperor. His strength was much stronger than the Void Emperor and the other 8 tribulations of the Eastern Heaven. However, as long as his opponent had the wood element cultivation base, he would definitely not be a match for him. Let's join forces and kill this monster with the falling stars. The immortal emperor of the divine algae clan who had the wood element cultivation base gritted his teeth and gave an order. His killing intent was fully unleashed. Ning Fan certainly gave him a heavy sense of pressure. However, in his opinion, if he is the center and the power of all the immortal emperors combined, he would be able to severely injure Ning Fan even if he could not kill him. When he thought of killing Ning Fan and obtaining the opportunity to receive the quasi-saint empowerment from the fallen great divine priest, the blood of the immortal emperor of the divine algae clan began to boil and he could not suppress his excitement. Chapter 1143. There will definitely be brave men in the face of great rewards. The eighth tribulation immortal emperor of the divine algae clan forcefully suppressed his fear towards Ning Fan. His eternal true body with 3 heads and 8 arms changed his hand seals. At this moment, the power of the other 10 immortal emperors followed the ancient formation power of the crepe myrtle star formation and gathered on his body. A massive aura force spread out from his body. At this moment, he no longer looked like an 8th tribulation immortal emperor but a half-step saint who was strengthened by the crepe myrtle star formation. This white-robed Yama can tell that I'm the key to this crepe myrtle star formation. That's why he wants to kill me first to break the formation. What he did was right and wrong at the same time. His method is right, but he has underestimated me. Since I'm the key to this formation, I can control most of its power. It won't be easy for him to kill me. Fellow Taoists, increase the output of your magic power. I'm going to use the supreme crepe myrtle star technique to kill this bastard. The immortal emperor of the divine algae clan suddenly shouted. His voice sounded like the devil-breaking roar of an arhat subduing a devil or a bodhisattva's graceful Sanskrit chant to save people. As soon as he shouted, more crepe myrtle star formation fell from the sky like a meteor shower. However, they were no longer attacking the formation of the myriad saints pass. Instead, they were heading towards Ning Fan. The power of the falling stars was not any weaker than a full-powered attack of a half-step quasi-saint realm expert. The meteor shower was like a formation, blocking the path between Ning Fan and the immortal emperor of the divine algae clan. If Ning Fan continues to move forward, he would certainly collide with the attack of the countless stars. Ning Fan, however, did not try to avoid the attack. Instead, he continued to rush towards the immortal emperor of the divine algae clan with the same momentum. Finally, on the way, it collided with the attack of the meteor shower of thousands of large stars. Rumble! Rumble! Rumbled at an earth-shattering collision sound reverberated. Purple starlight instantly engulfed the entire battlefield of the myriad saints pass. No one could open their eyes in the intense starlight. Even powerful beings like Taoist Xianwei and myriad Saint Dragon King covered their eyes, not daring to look at the starlight directly. Is he dead? This white-robe Yama was hit by so many stars head-on. He should be dead, right? The immortal emperor of the divine algae clan could not hide the excitement in his heart. If he really kills Ning Fan, the chance of receiving the quasi-saint's empowerment would really fall into his hands. These innate magic treasures were all low-grade grass magic treasures. There were watergrass divine swords and divine wood small cauldrons among them. They were of different types and each of them had unpredictable power. It was a life-saving technique that the divine algae clan's progenitor left behind for his descendants. It could only be activated by igniting his bloodline. It must not be used unless it is absolutely necessary. In the face of certain death, the divine algae clan's immortal emperor activated this ability. The 8 illusory innate magic treasures in his hands were all struck at Ning Fan's ghostly sword attack. In an instant, the water-blue sword light collided with the green light of the 8 innate magic treasures. All the experts of the foreign races were stunned by the life-saving technique of the divine algae clan's immortal emperor. Everyone knew how destructive the power of the 8 innate magic treasures was when they attacked at the same time. No one thought that Ning Fan's sword attack could break through the 8 innate magic treasures. However, the scene that happened next was incomprehensible and unbelievable to them. As soon as those innate magic treasures collided with Ning Fan's ocean-defying sword light, they withered and shattered one after another. It was just too unbelievable. It looked like Ning Fan had directly drained all of the wood power of those 8 innate magic treasures. Then, the unstoppable water blue sword light no longer had any obstacles in its way. It struck the immortal emperor of the divine algae clan's ancient true body. The weight of 18 stars pressed against the sharp edge of the ocean-defying sword. It easily broke the armor of the divine algae clan's immortal emperor and penetrated his body. The moment the sword penetrated his body, the immortal emperor of the divine algae clan felt that his cultivation base was being suppressed by a tremendous power of the Palm realm. He could not even escape with his demon soul. His demon soul was sealed inside his body by a tremendous power of the Palm realm. Thousands of heavenly gujads exploded like thousands of suns. But with just a single sword attack, the true body of the divine algae clan's immortal emperor was shattered and his demon soul was captured. Ning Fan killing a 6 tribulation immortal emperor with a single sword attack was already very shocking. Now that he killed an 8 tribulation immortal emperor with a single sword attack, all the experts of the foreign races were speechless. Killing an 8 tribulation immortal emperor instantly? Is this something that a cultivator from the Dharma ending era can do? Even a true quasi-saint realm expert would not be able to do this. An 8 tribulation immortal emperor was not an ant. Even if they were to face a quasi-saint realm expert, they would still be able to resist for a while. How could they be killed by a single sword attack? The Void Space Emperor, Divine Space Emperor and the Crimson Camel Emperor forgot to cheer for Ning Fan's stunning sword attack. Their situation was somewhat similar to Ming He Child. At this moment, they were shocked by Ning Fan's strength which far surpassed the Dharma ending era and began to doubt themselves. After all, none of them were as powerful as the divine algae race's immortal emperor. Since Ning Fan could instantly kill an immortal emperor of the divine algae clan, he was no longer on the same level as them. With such strength, how would they dare to address him as fellow Taoist in the future? They could only address him as senior, killing in 8 tribulations with one strike. This was impossible. This is impossible. The ones who were deeply affected by Ning Fan's sword strike were not only the Void Emperor and the others but also the great sovereigns of the foreign races. As immortal emperors, which one of them wasn't proud and arrogant? Which one of them didn't believe that they were standing at the peak of the age of chaos? The 8th tribulation was only 1 tribulation less than the 9th tribulation. It was almost the pinnacle existence among the immortal emperors. However, an immortal emperor who was a peak existence like him was actually killed by Ning Fan with a single sword strike. Is the immortal emperor realm really worthy of pride? Is it really worthy of pride? As immortal emperors, it had been many years since they felt the boundless great Tao. They were complacent and self-satisfied. They thought they were already standing at the peak of the Tao mountain. However, Ning Fan made them feel that the Tao mountain was unreachable and insurmountable. No, that's not right. The reason why this old monster Yen Luo could kill an 8 tribulation immortal emperor with a single sword strike was because he used a trick. He didn't really do it. He used the power of the sovereign realm. It's the sovereign realm. He's the real sovereign realm. He has the wood sovereign realm. He's the sovereign immortal king. I can't believe there's still a sovereign immortal king in the age of chaos. No wonder fellow Taoist divine algae was killed by this devil with a single sword strike. It's because of the sovereign realm's restraint. If it's another 8 tribulation immortal emperor, he probably wouldn't be in such a sorry state. This devil isn't invincible. He can't really fight a quasi-sage realm expert. However, his identity as a sovereign immortal king is already enough to shock the world. There are only a few sovereign immortal kings in the Age of Chaos, and all of them are existences above the immortal emperor realm. This young man can actually become a sovereign immortal king as an immortal king. Gradually, someone revealed the fact that Ning Fan was a sovereign immortal king. Their voices became even more shocked. However, the content of their shock shifted from Ning Fan killing an 8 tribulation immortal emperor to his identity as a sovereign immortal king. The divine refining cauldron followed behind Ning Fan on its own as if it had a spirit of its own. It was waiting for Ning Fan to throw the newly captured demon soul of the divine algae emperor into it. Ning Fan could sense the divine refining cauldron's desire. He threw the demon soul of the divine algae emperor into it, allowing the cauldron to refine it to death and turn it into his 10,000 spirit blood. His gaze swept over the foreign tribe's army. They had clearly walked out of the Eminent Saints Pass protective array formation, had clearly stepped into the encirclement of the foreign tribe's army, but there was no trace of fear. Killing the divine weed immortal emperor did not make him feel proud at all. After all, he had used a trick and killed too many immortal emperors. He was already numb to it. What surprised him was that even though he had been surrounded by the alien army and had even killed an 8th Tribulation immortal emperor in an instant, the 2 half-sages of the alien race were still sitting calmly in the middle of the army and didn't join in the siege. This was illogical. Only 2 half-sages and 10 immortal emperors working together would have the highest chance of killing him. Why aren't the 2 half-saints attacking? Was he confident that he could destroy him with just the immortal emperors under him? Or was he too conceited to participate in the siege? Or was he plotting something else? Ning Fan did not know why the 2 half-sages of the alien race were still sitting in the middle of the army. However, it should be a good thing for him. In that case, he could hunt down the enemy's immortal emperors with even more ease. Without the half-saints attacking him, the remaining 10 immortal emperors on the enemy side who had lost the key to the formation were completely useless. Kill! The few immortal emperors of the alien race suddenly mustered up their courage and joined hands to attack him. At the same time, there were also tens of immortal venerables and immortal kings attacking him. Ning Fan's true form wielded the ocean-defying sword and made several slashes. The few immortal emperors of the alien race were sent flying while coughing out blood. As for those immortal venerables and immortal kings, all of them died. Under the slashes, they turned into a rain of blood. He already had 13,500 tribulations worth of magic power. In the future, he would have even more magic power. He was no longer the same as before. When he was surrounded by immortal emperors, he had to use tricks to defeat them. He already had the strength to face the attacks of immortal emperors head-on. At this moment, he was a wolf while the enemy army was a flock of sheep. Kill! After the first wave of immortal emperors was repelled, the other immortal emperors joined hands to attack him. Among them, the traitorous immortal emperor Dong Ling was also among them. Ning Fan made a few slashes and repelled several immortal emperors of the alien race. He also killed tens of immortal venerables and immortal kings. At the same time, Dong Ling immortal emperor Dong Ling was forced to retreat. However, this time, Ning Fan did not stop after repelling Dong Ling immortal emperor Dong Ling. Instead, his figure flashed and he instantly caught up to him. Then, he delivered another slash at Dong Ling immortal emperor who was sent flying. Dong Ling immortal emperor Dong Ling's cultivation base was just at the 7th Tribulation realm. How could he withstand Ning Fan's sword attack? Once again, he was sent flying by Ning Fan and his injuries became even more severe. Ning Fan flashed and chased after him again. He swung his sword for the 3rd time, the 4th time, the 5th time. When he reached the 7th slash, he finally killed Dong Ling immortal emperor. Dong Ling immortal emperor, on the other hand, had some life-saving abilities. He only died after blocking Ning Fan's 7 slashes. Even though it was not an instant kill and it was not as shocking as before, when this notorious traitor of the Eastern Heaven was killed, the entire Myriad Saints Pass was still filled with cheers. There were also some cultivators who cried tears of joy. These people who were crying were basically the disciples of Great Emperor Tai Li who was ambushed and killed by the alien race because of Dong Ling's betrayal. Now that Ning Fan killed Dong Ling, it was no different from avenging their sect for them. Naturally, they were grateful to him. Dong Ling immortal emperor had betrayed the Eastern Heaven during the tens of years that Ning Fan was in seclusion. Ning Fan did not know why Dong Ling immortal emperor betrayed the Eastern Heaven and he was not concerned about the whole story. He only knew that Dong Ling immortal emperor was a traitor who had betrayed the oath that was made during the alliance meeting. It was enough for him to be attacked by all the experts. After using the ocean-defying sword excessively, Ning Fan's true body was slightly panting. He seemed to be rather exhausted. Seeing this, The few immortal emperors of the foreign races returned and attacked Ning Fan in an airtight manner. They did not intend to give Ning Fan any time to rest. Even though old devil Yen Luo's Dao weapon is powerful, it seems to be too heavy. He has already begun to pant. It's probably because he has exhausted too much of his strength. We can't give him any time to rest. This was the unanimous opinion of the immortal emperors of the alien race. Ning Fan was also aware that he had used a little too much strength in wielding the ocean-defying sword continuously. He kept the ocean-defying sword and no longer used it. Instead, he summoned the Seven Treasures Wondrous Tree. With a few swishing sounds, he sent the few immortal emperors who were attacking him flying. Then, he opened his mouth and breathed out a bolt of flame lightning, burning a large number of the alien race into ashes. Ning Fan also summoned the Sun Moon Star Steel and the Fate-Severing Sword 3 times consecutively, killing everyone in his way and causing the army of the alien race to bleed like a river. Ning Fan did not have the sea-calming Divine Needle because it required more strength than the ocean-defying sword. However, in terms of destructive power, it was much stronger than the ocean-defying sword. Thus, he could keep it as a trump card. So, Master, Little Infant is wrong. Little Infant has reflected on his mistakes. Let Little Infant join the battle as well. Let Little Infant make some contributions for Master. Suddenly, a voice was transmitted to Ning Fan's mind through the spiritual connection. Ning Fan was surprised. It was really unbelievable that this thing would take the initiative to ask to join the battle. Ever since this thing was subdued by him, it had never taken the initiative to ask to join the battle. It had been refusing to cooperate with him without violence. No matter how he forced it, it refused to work for him. Did the sun rise from the west today? This thing is actually willing to fight for me? The thing that took the initiative to ask to join the battle was none other than the Dao Extermination Lightning Infant that Ning Fan had subdued while helping Luo Ho block the tribulation in the past. Ning Fan had already experienced the power of this item on that day. If this item is used with the Tai Su lightning diagram and his innate mid-grade flame lightning flame, it would become a truly powerful killing weapon. Its destructive power was much more than the sea-calming Divine Needle. Are you really willing to submit to me? Ning Fan asked the Dao Extermination Lightning Infant through the spiritual connection as if he was doubtful. Yes, Master. Little Infant has already been beaten by Big Sister Black Devil. Convinced. Big Sister Black Devil? You're right. In front of an existence like Master, the heavenly Dao spirits of the Dao Hun clan are nothing. We don't have the right to be arrogant, and it's not shameful to be a slave. If Jiu Li, who is ranked 4th in the Dao Soul Realm, can be a slave, then the ancestral Lightning Sparrow, who is ranked within the top 400, why can't I, the Dao Extermination Lightning Infant, who is ranked 95th in the Dao Soul Realm, become a slave? Little Infant has thought it through. I don't want to be beaten anymore. I'm willing to be Master's slave. Master, please control Big Sister Black Devil. Don't let her beat me anymore. I'm begging you, my good master. The Dao Extermination Lightning Infant pleaded. Ning Fan smiled after hearing what it said. He finally understood that this Dao Extermination Lightning Infant was afraid of being beaten by Black Devil. That was why it submitted to him. This time, Ning Fan did not bring any followers with him to the Border River meeting. However, Black Devil still strongly requested to follow him. Currently, Black Devil had found a place to stay in the profound Yin world with his quasi-emperor spiritual puppet, He Xiaolian. In his spare time, Black Devil would train He Xiaolian and the primogenitor lightning sparrow Ke Gu every day, trying to train these two servants who were becoming more and more useless to him. Ning Fan let Black Devil do whatever he wants with regards to this matter. After all, be it the quasi-emperor spiritual puppet or the primogenitor lightning sparrow Ke Gu, none of them were of any use to him anymore. It was good for them to be trained by Black Devil. If they could really achieve something from the training, it would be an unexpected gain. In the past, after Ning Fan captured the Dao Extermination Lightning Infant, he planted a slave restriction on it and tried to persuade it in every possible way. However, this infant was quite stubborn and arrogant. Ning Fan had tried his best to persuade it, but it still refused to truly submit to him. With no other choice, Ning Fan decided to seal the Dao Extermination Lightning Infant's cultivation base and put it in the profound Yin world for Black Devil to discipline. This Dao Extermination Lightning Infant was also a member of the Dao Soul clan. However, the Dao Extermination Lightning Infant clan that it belonged to could not be compared to the Nine Raccoon clan. As a member of the Nine Raccoon clan of the Royal Clan, Black Devil could summon the king's bow to kill the other Dao Soul clan and seize the fate of his clan. To ordinary Dao Soul realm experts, he was a great threat. With her disciplining the Dao Extermination Lightning Infant, it was only natural that she would be able to convince it. Since you've decided to submit to me, I'll give you a chance to perform. There seems to be something strange about today's battle. The two half-step sovereigns on the enemy's side did not make a move at all. I suspect that they have some tricks up their sleeves. If they really have some tricks up their sleeves, I will use your power. As long as you perform well, I will persuade Black Devil to be gentler in disciplining you in the future and I won't beat you up anymore. Thank you, Master. The Dao Extermination Lightning Infant was overjoyed upon hearing Ning Fan's words. It stopped talking and waited for Ning Fan to summon it at any time. On the battlefield, Ning Fan was still engaged in a one-sided slaughter as if there was no one around. The entire river surface was filled with floating corpses and blood. In just the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, nearly 1 million members of the foreign races had been killed by him alone. His giant golden flame body was stained with the blood of the foreign races. He was like a peerless god of war who could hold the fort against 10,000 enemies by himself. As long as the half-step sovereigns did not show up, the immortal emperors present were not his match at all. The Sand Soul clan's immortal emperor, who had a strange body structure, was burned into glass by his monstrous lightning flames. An immortal emperor of the Flying Fish clan who had 6 wings tried to sneak an attack on Ning Fan. However, he was smashed into meat paste by Ning Fan's sun, moon, and star steel. An immortal emperor of the Octopus clan sprayed ink from his mouth to attack Ning Fan. However, his head was cut off by Ning Fan's fate-severing sword. Another immortal emperor of the Golden Scaled clan was smashed into a bloody pulp by Ning Fan's ancient devil-breaking mountain. They could not stop him. The army of millions of foreign races and tens of foreign immortal emperors could not stop Ning Fan alone. Ning Fan had become the fully deserving Yama King. In the army of the foreign races, he killed people like flies, but he did not show any hesitation or mercy. His baleful chi was so terrifying that it could suffocate ordinary immortal emperors. His strength made all the experts of the foreign races look at him with surprise. Countless experts of the foreign races begged Taoist Xianwei and Dragon King Wansheng to help. However, the two half-step sovereigns only told them that the time was not right and they could not take action. They simply did not show up to stop Ning Fan's rampage. Finally, all the immortal emperors on the side of the foreign races, except for Mo He and Gui Hua who betrayed them, were all killed by Ning Fan. Somehow, as the number of immortal emperors he killed continued to increase, Ning Fan finally had a strange feeling. It was as if there was something unexpected that made him feel uneasy. Seeing that the number of casualties on the battlefield had reached a certain number, Taoist Xianwei finally could not hold it in anymore. He said to Dragon King Wansheng, "Is it still not enough? This young man is just too strong. I can't hold it anymore. I want to fight him. Don't be anxious. It will be enough after another few 100,000 soldiers die." While Taoist Wansheng was comforting Taoist Xianwei, he glared at Mo He and Gui Hua who were standing beside him. The two of them had already retreated from the battlefield and were hiding beside him. On one hand, they were afraid of death. On the other hand, it was because the two of them still had some special use. Fellow Taoist Gui Hua, how are your preparations? Dragon King Wansheng sent a cold voice transmission to her. He had always looked down on the traitorous emperor of the Eastern Heaven. If it wasn't because this woman still had some value to him, he would not even bother to talk nonsense with her. Lord Wansheng, don't worry. After a large amount of blood sacrifice, the satiety of the Ghost flower of the netherworld has already reached 97%. After some more blood sacrifice, it will wake up. How confident are you that we can turn this little Yama King into an undying ghost soldier? T 30%. Madame Guihua said cautiously, as if she was worried that Dragon King Wansheng would be dissatisfied because the probability was too low. Chapter 1144. 30%? That's too low. But I'll give it a try. This man's techniques are extremely strange. If we can turn him into an undying ghost soldier and offer him to the great divine priest, you will be the one who has contributed the most. If you fail, you won't need to live anymore. Myriad Saint Dragon King snorted coldly. Madame Guihua's face instantly turned pale after hearing his words. In order to survive, she made up her mind to succeed no matter what. On the battlefield, Ning Fan was like a butterfly gliding through flowers. He dodged and leaped through the concentrated attacks of the foreign race's army. He came and went freely as if there was no one there. The immortal emperors who tried to besiege him were all killed by him. Even though there were still 2 to 3 million foreign experts attacking him, there were no immortal emperors participating in the attack. Thus, there was nothing to worry about. Immortal kings and immortal venerables of the foreign race who held high positions were killed by Ning Fan with just a raise of his hand. They did not even cause a ripple. He alone had crushed an army of millions of foreign races. The more dead foreign races there were in the surroundings, the more uneasy Ning Fan felt. At this moment, he was even more certain that Taoist Xianwei and Myriad Saint Dragon King had some kind of backup plan. Gradually, a chilly wind began to blow between the water and the sky. The corpses floating on the water surface gradually changed. Dark red plant roots began to grow out of the corpses and flesh of the foreign experts one after another. The surface of those plant roots had small thorns that looked like thorns. As their number grew, they covered the entire surface of the battlefield. At first glance, it looked like a huge patch of dark red thorns had grown on the surface of the water. The thorns seemed to be able to use the flesh and blood of the dead as nutrients to grow rapidly. The thorns in front of Ning Fan's eyes grew more and more. There were also giant flowers blooming amidst the thorns. Those giant flowers were pale in color. That kind of abnormal whiteness was like the stiff skin of the dead. There was a strange fragrance coming from those giant flowers. Even with Ning Fan's strength, he felt dizzy and shocked when he accidentally smelled that fragrance. What kind of flowers are these? Ning Fan did not recognize those giant flowers. However, he could vaguely sense that there was a trace of Madame Guihua's qi in them. She must be the one who created these giant flowers. Ning Fan did not have a deep impression of Madame Guihua. He only remembered that when he had just arrived at the border river, this woman had once impatiently invited him for a spring breeze, but he had refused. He only knew that this woman had betrayed Eastern Sky. As for the whole story of her betrayal, he didn't know the details. Madame Guihua was just a 7 tribulation immortal emperor. Logically speaking, such an existence could not threaten Ning Fan. However, the strange giant flower that Madame Guihua conjured made Ning Fan feel a trace of threat when he thought of how Profound Tale and Wansheng allowed him to go on a killing spree and how this gigantic flower could use dead people as its nutrients. Ning Fan had a guess. It seemed like Xianwei and Wansheng's trump card was these giant flowers. Seeing that the number of gigantic flowers was increasing, there was no way Ning Fan would let them continue to grow. He opened up a gap in the battlefield and breathed out a sea of flame lightning, trying to incinerate all the thorny flowers in front of him. Ever since he subdued the Tao extermination lightning nascent soul and turned it into the lightning spirit of his lightning diagram, the lightning power in his lightning flame had become even stronger, causing the destructive power of his lightning flame to be much stronger than before. It was much stronger than most of the mid-grade innate flames in the Age of Chaos ending. Ordinary plants wouldn't be able to withstand the thunder flame. However, these thorny flowers remained unscathed in the sea of flame as if they were not afraid of this level of flames and lightning at all. Even the mid-grade innate thunder flame can't hurt these flowers? Ning Fan was really surprised. He then took out the 7 treasures wondrous tree and smashed the sun moon star steel. He even used the power of his wood divine lattice, trying to directly absorb the vitality of these thorny flowers. However, the attacks of the mid-grade innate thunder flame could not cause any effective damage to these gigantic flowers at all. What was even more strange was that although these gigantic flowers looked like plants, they were not made of plants at all. The gigantic flowers and thorny roots were actually made of the flesh and blood of dead people. Since they were not plants, they were naturally not restricted by the wood divine lattice. This matter also surprised Ning Fan. Seeing that the number of gigantic flowers was increasing but he could not stop them, Ning Fan's eyes glowed with green light, trying to see through the details of these gigantic flowers. On the other side, Xian Wei and Wan Xing sneered disdainfully when they saw Ning Fan being helpless against the ghost flowers of the netherworld. It's right that you are helpless. The famous ghost flowers of the netherworld were something that even quasi-saints would have to avoid. How could a puny Ning Fan possibly resist them? There are already hundreds of child flowers in the ghost flowers. It's about time for me to take action, right? Taoist Xian Wei said with a smile. The child flowers have already matured. The mother flower will appear soon. Let's attack together and eliminate this brat. Only then will the ghost flowers of the netherworld be able to absorb his power. Wan Sheng's eyes flashed with killing intent and said with a smile. Attack together? There's no need for that. I've already said that I want to eliminate this brat alone. Taoist Xian Wei said arrogantly. Even though he had already witnessed Ning Fan's strength, he still believed that he could easily eliminate Ning Fan. Wan Sheng frowned. He wanted to say something but hesitated. He knew Taoist Xian Wei's character. He always kept his word. This person did not want his help. If he helps him, it would only make him resent him. Ancient devils are really troublesome. They are all a bunch of battle maniacs whose brains are filled with muscles. Since that's the case, I will stay at the side and help fellow Taoist. Wan Sheng compromised. Very well. All of you ants, back off. I want to fight the white-robed Yama alone. The latter part of his words were directed at the remaining troops of the foreign races. After Taoist Xian Wei gave the order, he let out a long roar. His body turned into layers of devil shadows and flew out, heading straight for Ning Fan. When the troops of the foreign races saw Taoist Xian Wei personally taking action, they retreated according to his order, leaving the battlefield to Ning Fan and Xian Wei. They obviously have two half-step saints, but they only sent one of them to fight me. Why is that? Ning Fan's eyes narrowed. His giant body of golden flames stared coldly at Taoist Xian Wei. He was used to seeing the schemes of cultivators. He did not believe that the other party would fight him fair and square when he had the upper hand. The other party had two half-step saints, but they only sent one of them to fight him. This was the first point of doubt. The other party had spent a lot of effort to summon countless strange giant flowers. However, those giant flowers only grew on their own and did not attack him at all. This was the second point of doubt. Sometimes, smart people would go to a dead end. Ning Fan was currently in such a situation. All of a sudden, Ning Fan seemed to have understood something. He could see the strong conceit and disdain in Taoist Xian Wei's eyes. The other party might have a scheme by summoning the giant flowers. However, there was no scheme in sending only one half-step saint to fight him. It was just because he looked down on him. The ancient devil half-step saint in front of him was looking down on him from the start. Even though he had displayed a lot of strength earlier, it was still not worth mentioning in his eyes. I am Xian Wei. Young man, I heard from my brother Bai Zhu that you are also an ancient devil? Taoist Xian Wei's face was filled with disdain and he burst into laughter. Since you are the descendant of ancient chaos, it's not surprising that you can cultivate to the level of an ancient devil in the age of Dharma ending. Unfortunately, you don't know that there are also nobles and lowly ones among the ancient devils. I was born in the ancient devil world of the true world. Be it my noble identity or the lost abilities of the ancient devils, none of them are comparable to a lowly ancient devil like you. In my opinion, an ancient devil of the age of Dharma ending like you is not even worth a fart. This old man can kill you with just one finger. If I use 2 fingers, I will admit defeat. Arrogance. How arrogant! Taoist Xian Wei raised a finger and shook it at Ning Fan. His disdainful attitude was as if he was looking down at the lowliest ant. To the cultivators of other races, being arrogant and underestimating their enemy despite being a half-step saint was definitely an idiot. However, ancient devils were different. Ancient devils were born to be berserkers. The more arrogant they were, and the more they looked down on the world, the stronger their combat power would be. Dragon King Wansheng was definitely not joking when he said that the brains of ancient devils are all muscles. Only those ancient devils whose brains were filled with muscles would still choose to fight Ning Fan one-on-one even when they had the upper hand. Ning Fan frowned. However, he was not angered by Taoist Xian Wei's disdainful words. What kind of mentality did he have? Even though he was an ancient devil and he was also arrogant, he would never show it on the surface. Instead, he would express it with his actions. His gigantic body of golden flames swayed slightly and disappeared from his original spot. He wanted to attack Taoist Xian Wei with the ancient devil mountain breaking strike first. Seeing Ning Fan disappear, Taoist Xian Wei laughed and disappeared as well. At the next moment, somewhere in the empty sky, the hollow space suddenly shattered. 2 human figures fell from the sky. Taoist Xian Wei fell out of the hollow space. His actions were relatively calm. He still maintained the posture of raising his index finger. However, that finger of his was slightly red and swollen, as if it was injured by a tremendous force. His facial expression was slightly unpleasant. Ning Fan, on the other hand, was in a slightly worse state. He was sent flying by Taoist Xian Wei's finger during the first encounter. Taoist Xian Wei was not boasting. Even though he only used a finger, the power of that finger was much stronger than the punch of many doomsday quasi-saints. This man's physical body is actually this terrifying. Is this the strength of an ancient devil who has lived since ancient times until today? Ning Fan was unwilling to admit it, but he had to. Even though he had consumed the 10 lions 10 elephants pill, he was still a few levels weaker than Taoist Xian Wei in terms of physical strength. He admitted the existence of such a difference in strength. However, it did not mean that he was willing to admit that he could not even defeat Taoist Xian Wei, who only used a finger. At this moment, he clearly had more options to choose from. He could use the ocean-defying sword, the 7 treasures wondrous tree, the sun moon star steel, the fate-severing sword, the flame lightning fire, the sea-calming divine needle. However, he did not want to use any of them. His opponent was an ancient devil and Ning Fan was also an ancient devil. The pride of an ancient devil would not allow Ning Fan to evade a direct challenge from an ancient devil. He must defeat his opponent with strength and fight back head-on. Only those who counter strength with strength are worthy of being called ancient devils. If the strength of one punch is weaker than the opponent's finger, then he will use the second punch, the third punch, and the fourth punch. Ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike. Ning Fan's giant golden flame body whizzed out and threw another destructive punch at Taoist Xian Wei. Taoist Xian Wei had already experienced the power of Ning Fan's Ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike. Even though the strength of his opponent's punch was completely weaker than his finger, the explosive damage from the Ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike still made his finger bones hurt. His rationality told him that he should not continue to be arrogant in Ning Fan's second punch and only use a finger to fight Ning Fan. However, the pride of an ancient devil from an aristocratic family did not allow him to take back his previous words. Since he said that he would only use a single finger to fight Ning Fan, he could only use a single finger. If he uses the second finger, he would damage the reputation of an ancient devil from an aristocratic family. One should know that Ning Fan was just an immortal king ancient devil at the 3rd level of ancestral reversion, while he was a half-saint realm ancient devil at the great perfection level of ancestral reversion. With such a huge difference in cultivation level, it would be really embarrassing if he could not win against Ning Fan with a single finger. Lost Ancient Devil Technique, Star Jade Finger. At this moment, the 9 devil stars in Taoist Xian Wei's right eye rotated rapidly, activating the lost ability of an ancient devil that was passed down from the true world. Then, he used the power of his finger to collide with Ning Fan's Ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike. Boom! Ning Fan was sent flying by Taoist Xian Wei's finger once again. Taoist Xian Wei's finger bones also became even more swollen because of Ning Fan's second punch. Being able to send Ning Fan flying with a single finger, Taoist Xianwei was definitely not someone the half-step saints from the Dharma-ending era could compare to. Even though his cultivation base was only at the half-step saint realm, his strength was already not any weaker than Xiang Bozi, who was at the first-level quasi-sacred realm. It was not strange at all for Ning Fan to be sent flying by Taoist Xianwei's finger. If it was Dragon King Wan Sheng or Wan Xingzi, they would also be sent flying by Taoist Xianwei's finger. Everyone was stunned by Taoist Xianwei's strength. Be it the experts of the foreign races or the cultivators of the Eastern Heaven, it was actually their first time seeing Taoist Xianwei in action. None of them expected that Ning Fan, who was unrivaled in the past, would be completely suppressed by Taoist Xianwei's finger. An ancient devil who had lived since ancient times until today was just too strong. Could it be that none of the cultivators from the Dharma-ending era could defeat an ancient cultivator without relying on the suppression of their cultivation level? Ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike. Ning Fan threw out more Ancient Devil Iron Fists. On the surface, he was sent flying by Taoist Xianwei again and again, looking extremely miserable. However, in reality, he did not suffer many injuries from Taoist Xianwei's attacks because he was relying on his divine spirit body that was growing stronger day by day. Occasionally, Ning Fan would be injured by the force of the finger. However, with his strong recovery ability, he could usually heal his injuries in an instant. No matter how miserable he looked, he was not injured at all. Even though Taoist Xianwei had a high and mighty attitude, the injuries on his finger bones were getting more and more serious. Each of Ning Fan's Ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike was getting heavier and heavier. In just tens of breaths' time, he had already exchanged 800 blows with Taoist Xianwei. The 800 Ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike had already begun to bare its fangs. However, with a cracking sound, Taoist Xianwei's finger bones were actually broken by Ning Fan. This time, Ning Fan was not sent flying by Taoist Xianwei's finger force. With a muffled groan, the person who was sent flying was Taoist Xianwei. Such a powerful senior Xianwei was actually sent flying by the white-robed Yama. The experts of the foreign races were shocked. The cultivators of the Eastern Heaven, on the other hand, felt extremely excited. Taoist Xianwei's expression was extremely unpleasant. Just now, he had said that he did not need to use his second finger to deal with Ning Fan. However, the cruel reality had given him a tight slap on his face. He could not help but admit that he had underestimated Ning Fan. Even though Ning Fan's strength was not as good as his ancient devil battle techniques were unimaginably brilliant, which made up for the difference in their strength. An ancient devil divine ability that I have never seen before. It's definitely at the lost grade. Damn it. Elder brother wanted to tell me about this young man's divine ability, and I even rejected him. However, I didn't expect him to actually have this kind of mystical ancient devil divine ability. He can actually stack the force of his fists to form consecutive attacks. As an ancient devil of an aristocratic family, I have heard about most of the lost divine abilities of the ancient devils in this world. However, I have never heard of this technique before. It's highly likely because this technique was created in the last era and not an ancient ultimate technique. All of the divine abilities in this world have the concept of compatibility. If it's not created by oneself, no matter how suitable a divine ability is, it's impossible to achieve 100% compatibility. It's precisely because of this that cultivators of my generation need to continuously develop and create divine abilities that belong to us. The compatibility of this young man's fist technique has definitely reached the highest level of 100%. There's only one explanation for this. This technique was created by him. He actually created the lost divine ability of the ancient devil with the identity of an immortal king at the third level of ancestral reversion. Besides, this is an extremely powerful lost grade divine ability. My Star Jade Finger is definitely not comparable to it. I also have a self-created divine ability. Lost Ancient Devil Technique, Mixed Primordial Divine Void Strike. Taoist Xuanwei's eyes darkened. He threw away his previous arrogant words of not using two fingers to the back of his mind. Then he threw out an iron fist and faced Ning Fan's fist light with another lost divine ability of the ancient devil. When their fists collided, Taoist Xianwei had a slight upper hand. However, it did not mean that his self-created mixed primordial divine void strike was stronger than the ancient devil mountain breaking strike. In fact, it was the exact opposite. Even though he had an ancient devil power that far surpassed Ning Fan's, he could only gain a slight upper hand because his self-created technique was not as powerful as Ning Fan's. As the number of Ning Fan's consecutive attacks continued to rise, his advantage in strength was also slowly losing. 900 consecutive attacks. 1,000 consecutive attacks. 1,100 consecutive attacks. It was as if there were countless ocean waves stacked on top of each other. It was as if there were countless mountains with endless peaks and boundless soil. When the number of consecutive attacks reached 2,000, Taoist Xianwei clearly felt that he was already at a disadvantage. He was being pushed back by Ning Fan's fist force time and time again. When Ning Fan used the 3,000 ancient devil mountain breaking strike, Taoist Xianwei coughed out blood for the first time. Both of his fists were badly mutilated and he was sent flying. A strong sense of humiliation occupied Taoist Xuanwei's heart. His self-created ancient devil technique was completely defeated by Ning Fan's. I don't believe it. Even with the knowledge of my clan, I don't have a single technique that surpasses yours, the lost ancient devil technique. Eternal True Body, activate. At this moment, Taoist Xianwei did not hold back at all. He even activated his Eternal True Body. After activating his Eternal True Body, his aura force reached the level of a first-level quasi-saint realm expert. He was a giant with 10 tails. His body emitted an incomparably pure ancient devil chi. Just by standing there, he seemed to have become the sky and everything in the world. Ning Fan's expression changed. He did not expect that Taoist Xianwei could actually reach the level of a quasi-saint after activating his Eternal True Body. Even though it was just a small step from the half-saint realm to the quasi-saint realm, this small step represented a huge gap, a gap between heaven and earth. The crowd of foreign races was also shocked. Such a Taoist Xianwei gave them a sense of invincible pressure. Lost ancient devil technique, 10 steps open bow. The giant with 10 tails that Taoist Xianwei had transformed into instantly took 10 steps forward. The momentum of the 10 steps turned into a devil bow. Using his essence chi as an arrow, he shot an arrow at Ning Fan. Ning Fan's golden flame true body was extremely strong. Even though he was sent flying by Taoist Xuanwei's arrow, his defense was not broken. Thus, he was not injured at all. Only his blood and chi were in turmoil because of the tremendous force of the arrow. 100 steps open bow. When Taoist Xianwei saw Ning Fan receive the arrow head-on without suffering any damage at all, his expression turned even uglier. He took 100 steps forward and shot another arrow. This arrow had nearly depleted 10% of his essence chi. The destructive power of this arrow was nearly twice as strong as the previous one. Ning Fan was sent flying again. The golden flames on the surface of his true body had been dispersed by the arrow light. He still can't break his defense. What kind of eternal true body does this young man cultivate? How can he possibly be this strong? Taoist Xuanwei's expression was as calm as still water. Countless devil shadows spread out from his body and he took 1,000 steps forward in an instant. 1,000 steps open bow. This was the strongest devil arrow that he could shoot. It was also the strongest attack that he could release in a fair and square battle. He needed to use more than half of his essence chi to shoot this arrow. The destructive power of this arrow was enough to severely injure most first-level quasi-saints. He did not believe that Ning Fan could withstand it. He would never believe it. Chi the arrow light pierced through 1,000 li, tearing heaven and earth apart. In an instant, it penetrated Ning Fan's defense and penetrated a few inches deep into his eternal true body. The defensive power of Ning Fan's true body was increasing day by day. Even a first-level quasi-saint would have a hard time hurting him. However, this arrow was too powerful. It still penetrated his defense and penetrated a few inches deep into his body. The destructive arrow qi instantly tore Ning Fan's body apart. Ning Fan's body had exceeded the limit of withstanding the destructive power of this arrow. With a loud bang, his physical body exploded. Is he dead? Taoist Xianwei panted heavily and let out a disdainful snort. However, at the next moment, his expression suddenly changed. He was a little exasperated. After Ning Fan's physical body exploded, it did not turn into a mist of blood and minced flesh that filled the sky. Instead, it turned into billions of raindrops. Each of the raindrops was the 10 billion rain spirit clone that Ning Fan cultivated. It was a life-saving divine ability. When Ning Fan cultivated this technique, he had never thought that he would be able to use it so soon. The billions of raindrops merged together and reformed Ning Fan's golden flame giant body. At this moment, the wound on Ning Fan's chest was bleeding profusely. It was difficult to stop the bleeding. It was caused by the remaining arrow qi. In the end, he was injured by Taoist Xuanwei's arrow. Fortunately, he was accompanied by rain every day. His 10 billion rain spirit clone was almost flawless. In the nick of time, he used this technique and his broken body neutralized most of the arrow qi. Thus, he was only slightly injured. This Taoist Xianwei in front of him was really a very powerful opponent. Life-killing technique, activate. Ning Fan's aura suddenly changed. Even though the ink mark of the cross-shaped halo contained the power of the life-killing technique, his aura would instantly change when Ning Fan himself activated the life-killing technique. His aura would then surpass all ancient devils. That was the aura that only the former master of the Devil Conferral Summit could possess. It was a pressure that only ancient devils could feel. This is the life-killing technique. Impossible. This technique had already disappeared from this world along with Mo Zhong. Why do you know this technique? Taoist Xuanwei's expression changed greatly. He no longer had the calmness and arrogance he had before. The life-killing technique could be said to be the restraining technique of all ancient devils. It could seize the essence qi of devils and devour their cultivation base. Ning Fan himself was already a tough opponent for him. If he uses this technique on top of that, it was highly likely that his essence qi would be devoured and he would be defeated by Ning Fan in the end. He did not have the confidence to win against Ning Fan if he uses a technique that was within the range of an ancient devil. In that case, he could only take an unconventional approach and use the green wave fire poison. This was not the technique of an ancient devil. On the contrary, it was the technique of the ancient devil's mortal enemy, the Buddha sect. This poison was extremely powerful when used against ordinary people. In ancient times, Taoist Xianwei had even used this poison to kill a quasi-saint realm expert. When used against an ancient devil, the power of this poison would be increased by 30%. This was a poison that was specially used by ancient Buddha cultivators to kill cultivators who disobeyed the Buddha sect. It was taken from the poisonous feathers of the green wave fire sparrow. Little Ning Fan, don't be so arrogant. Once I use this poison, you will die for sure. Taoist Xianwei performed a hand seal and the 10 poisonous tails on his back were immediately ignited with dark green flames. The flames were indescribably beautiful. However, they gave Ning Fan a sense of danger. The yin-yang poison transmitted a strong reaction to him from the flames. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed slightly. It seems like this Taoist Xuanwei's tail contains a deadly poison. I wonder how his poison is compared to the great sage Fire Toad's inherited saint poison. It seems like the other party does not intend to continue the battle using the ancient devil body technique. If that's the case, I will no longer hold back and use all my trump cards. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.